All right, so we'll start the afternoon section with Michael. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I'm here to go through my budget narrative for the mountain and the lake. I have two separate budgets. I'll start with the mountain. After a brief discussion with Tracy last week, I had a couple of small wage increases that I removed, as well as I had a proposed full-time lodge caretaker position. So the salary has now decreased by $28,171 versus I think it was a $9,269 increase. That also affected retirement, Social Security, Medicare, medical insurance, and unemployment insurance. So those all decreased from last year. The only increase on wages and benefits was workman's compensation increased by $261. The contract labor line item, which is for grooming at biathlon, that increased by $5,000 because that was approved last fall. Originally, it was a $25,000 contract, and then it went up to $30,000. Utility services increased by $10,500. That is basically just due to the increases that we've seen across the board for utilities. I decreased the buildings repair, maintenance, and cleaning by $3,400 to reflect closer to the expenses that we incur over the course of the year there. Machinery parts and equipment has increased by $8,000. That is mostly reflective in maintenance of the grooming equipment and the cost of the parts for that to keep those operational and do the typical maintenance schedule. The motor fuels on the mountain, that increased by $5,000 due to increase in consumption and the cost of fuel delivered on the mountain. So overall, the budget for the mountain is $710,000 and $710,064, which reflects a decrease of 3.72% over the 22-23 budget, so a decrease of $27,402. Some additional funding requests for the mountain. I'm unclear. Before, there was some maintenance costs that was going to be provided by the maintenance department for a powder house roof replacement. I don't have those numbers. I've never received those numbers. Replacement of 9 outhouse roofs. The big storm in early April actually squashed one of them. So I have some photos of that. And then there's a log wall repair at Crimson Dawn. I believe that's for the museum building, but I'm not sure. These are things that need to be taken care of. I don't know if they'll be taken care of this year or the following year. 1 cent funding requests. Fiscal year 22-23 had $120,000 for bear trap shelter. I have yet to send that out to bid, so I was hoping to carry that over, but eventually we'd like to do all 3, and that's approximately $412,000. The RDG wayfinding signs, the vehicular signs, we never rebid that. I have some questions and concerns on actually bidding that out. We had $75,000 in 1% reserve fiscal year 23. Obviously the lodge, we had $1.6 million, 1% reserve fiscal year 23. Crimson Dawn fencing, the fencing along the perimeter of Crimson Dawn needs to be fixed. However, when they plow Crimson Dawn Road, it's very narrow. So if that's to be done, that needs to be set back. That's probably $250,000 to do all of it. I would like to talk to the Boy Scouts and see about making that an Eagle Scout project or something like that. Crimson Dawn, not real clear on the direction they're gonna go as for, if they're gonna put it in the historical preservation, and that may restrict what my maintenance guys can do there. So,
Michael, how long is that fence? You're talking about a buck and rail fence all the way around that?
yeah, but the section that we wanna do is basically along Crimson Dawn Road.
Well, you got 250,000 in here, and it's not gonna cost $250,000 to put a buck and rail fence just along Crimson Dawn Road.
Yeah, I do not have a formal price on that. That was carried over, I believe, from a previous budget.
Okay.
So I didn't look into it too close. It might be half that, but at this day and age, I honestly have no idea. So I put in on the high side that option. Go ahead.
So, Mr. Chairman, so following up Dave's question, is the 250 is an estimate, but it's an estimate for the entire perimeter?
I believe so.
Okay.
I would have to look at,
It's
try and
not-
find a number.
It's not an estimate for the side that is adjacent to the main road?
Yeah, I believe this is for the entire perimeter.
Okay.
And then the last item I had was the new water line to the lodge. In fiscal year 22-23, we had $30,000 of 1% reserve. However, after submittal of the budget, I now have 350, and I wasn't sure if we would carry over the fiscal year. I'm kind of new to this, so I don't know if the fiscal year 23 1% reserve carries over, or if it starts new.
Mr. Chairman, typically it starts over. I think with Mr. Brown's budgets and what was approved in 1 cent, we'll have to take a real deeper dive into that because I have some invoices pending, so on and so forth. So his preliminary numbers may very well be reduced by invoices that, one, have already been paid or that are still pending. So
in fiscal year 24, there was approval for $350,000 for the water line. So,
Mr. Chairman, Michael, why are you thinking it's going to be less?
speaking with my staff and just a conversation I had with one contractor, I thought it was the 300,000. Again, I did not put the 350 in there because the 1 cent approval came out after I submitted this, so I did not edit that.
Chairman. Mike, is this, okay, so the new water line, is that from the pump all the way down to where the lodge is, or what does this go
I
to?
believe we can do the entire thing so we can reduce the amount. The lodge architect actually just recently met with Caspar, and they had taken that out of their proposal. So I believe we can go from the well to the new lodge site.
Okay.
And do it all.
At 300, not 350?
Honestly, without getting bids, I really don't know.
Shot in the dark.
Hey.
But 300, I think we could get it for 300.
Now, I know last year we approved a sleeve to go underneath the road right there.
Correct, and we
Is
did.
is that part of this? That's a different,
That would
was a
be
different
part of
quantity.
this now.
huh?
That would be part of this now. We did
Okay.
not install that sleeve last year.
Well, I knew we didn't put it in last year, but I knew we were going to put it in, and that was part of the plan, so that we didn't have to tear up the road again
Right.
when we did that. But I didn't know if that was actually on Mike's budget or if it was on yours.
No,
'Cause I
that was
don't-
in,
Yeah,
that
'cause
was
I
in
don't
my
remember.
budget for $30,000.
Yeah.
Okay, so that,
Mr. Chairman, so you're correct, Commissioner North, the water line sleeve to the lodge was approved at 30,000.
okay.
And then additional items which I'll cover in a separate line item is the city's Parks and Rec Master Plan. It was my understanding that it was approved to contribute $15,000 to that plan. So that'll come out of the mountain budget as well, but that'll come out of a current line item, probably, it could be the RMP implementation. I have 38.5 in there that I could use, and there was another line item I thought about taking that out of. So I did not, that's built into each line item narrative.
Where's the 38,000?
It's at the bottom of the budget. It's called RMP implementation.
Second to the last line, you got your mountain. Peter, mountain department. Second to last, says new, and then,
So this last year, I utilized that fund to purchase some tables and fire rings for the campgrounds on the mountain as part of that RMP implementation. But I believe that would be an appropriate place to help develop this master plan, so we have a good, solid understanding of what we have up there.
and that's 15?
Yeah, yeah. And then, one item that I have not yet been able to get a contract and pay out is the Wyoming Conservation Corps for the bridle trail repairs, and that was budgeted for 11.5 out of the 1% 16 approved projects. However, their cost increases put that to 15,000. So, I can utilize that RMP implementation for both of those at $30,000. So, excuse me.
Mr. Chairman. Tracy, as we move from the 16 to the 17, the money's not spent in 16 for projects. Do they just follow along as we complete those projects, or does it roll into reserve, or how's that handled?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Milne, it'll go into the reserve.
So for those projects, then we got to pull that money from reserve to complete them if we're going to do it.
Mr. Chairman, that's correct. It'll be in a different account line.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, can I ask Mr. Brown a couple questions?
Absolutely.
Okay, Michael, I want to make sure that I have my notes correct. So the RDG wayfinding signs, there's a pending invoice, is my understanding. This is my notes as of May 10th, or has one already been submitted?
No, RDG does not have any pending invoices. I got a response from Mr. Holbrook in legal. He was reviewing that contract as discussed with the commission to determine if the trailhead kiosks were part of that contract or not. And I believe his summary said they were not, but I have to review that yet and then get back with RDG. They had a ad service cost I presented to the commission, but that would come out of the LWCF grant for those kiosks, I believe, is where that could be funded.
Okay.
Unless we carry this leftover money over. This $75,000 was actually for the bid, or to pay for the contract to install the vehicular signs.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, what I'm looking at here was approved 1 cent cash reserve projects, and you all should have those in your, the front of your book, I believe. So, Michael, I have RDG wayfinding signs in the amount of $5,500. So those are not, nothing's happening with those right now?
I believe, I would have to check. I believe that's been paid out. I
Okay.
believe that was part of RDG's contract. They had an additional service a year ago for that.
Okay.
The $67,900 was for the awarding the contract.
And has that one been, I have pending
It
invoice.
has not.
Is that going to be paid out of this current fiscal, or is that going to meet the June?
That's
Deadline?
going to have to be rebid, so I'm not sure when that would be done.
Okay. And then I have the water line sleeve to the lodge. I have pending, but nothing, no movement's been made on that
Nothing's
yet.
been done on
Okay.
that.
And then Picnic tables and rings, I think you and I discussed you were ordering those.
Yes, so a voucher has been submitted for that $20,000 along with, it comes out of the 20,000 here plus the RMP implementation, and
Okay.
that'll be this fiscal year.
Thank you. And then the last item I have, fuel tanks, 2 fuel tanks, I have a pending invoice.
Yes, and I believe that voucher's been submitted.
Okay, thanks. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Michael, are those the ones up for the maintenance, at the maintenance yard on the mountain?
What's that?
The fuel tanks, are those the two new ones up?
Yeah,
there?
there's 2 new ones at the
Okay.
maintenance shop on the mountain,
Okay.
and they've been installed and they're operational.
Okay.
Additional expense for the mountain, under the approval of 1 cent number 17 for fiscal year '24. We spoke about the replacement water line from well to lodge. There's a pressure washer to be purchased for $6,000 and a compact bar for the groomer for $7,000.
Mr. Chairman, please note that that's 1 cent 17, so those were approved for fiscal '24.
So, please clarify, are we approving for fiscal year '24 or are we approving?
Yeah.
Okay.
We are.
Sometimes I get a little confused with 23, 24, 20. Okay. Are there any other questions on the mountain budget?
I do have a question. As far as the contract labor on the biathlon and grooming, the increase of 5,000, is that, that was for all that was in addition to what we were paying him to groom, keep that groomed up there, correct?
Yes, so for the last several years, he was being paid $25,000. It was $125 an hour at 200 hours. The commission last fall approved to increase that to $30,000 at $150 an hour for 200 hours.
So I guess my question is, if that goes back out for bid this year, or does it need to stay at 25, or do we need to stay at 30?
Honestly, my calculations, it should be around $20,000 that I did last fall. So, I think we can negotiate that, and work on that.
And Michael and I are working on looking at that.
Yeah.
With the guy that's doing it now?
No.
With him or whoever,
Doesn't say.
Gets that up.
The way they've spoken to me about the guy that's doing it now, I don't know if he would reduce his fees, would he?
I don't know if you would, but for the quality of what we get over there, I think it's well worth having a conversation about it. Because
The contract is up
the
this year.
contract's done, yes.
So we'll put it back out to bid.
Mr. Chairman.
Peter.
Michael, maintenance costs to be provided by Tom Popalik. So I'm unclear if you're planning on supplementing your budget request after getting those numbers from Tom, or if we're not going to worry about those for this year, or if Tom's supposed to have that built into his numbers. So what are we doing on those 3 question marks?
At this point in time, probably nothing, and just carry on as we are. If we could get, if I get some grants to improve some campgrounds, we could do that along with the improvement of the campgrounds.
Well, my question, I guess, is, are some of those things discretionary and some not? For example, I don't know the condition of the outhouse roof replacements. If it's just something, yeah, we ought to do it. That's, someday down the road, that's one thing. But if they're in bad enough condition, maybe they have to be done now. Same with regard to the powder house roof replacement.
From what I've seen, I think they'll probably last another season or so. But I'm not sure.
Okay, so I think I'm just going to cross those items
Yeah.
off, just so we know we're not going to expect more. Now, I think on the bear trap shelters, we had those at 120, we were going to do 1. That hasn't been bid out, why is that?
Timing, just, honestly, probably just workload. My workload and working with Emberg Miller to get the bid documents and then get those bid documents reviewed from legal. I submitted those to legal I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was March. And I've yet to see him back. I've sent in a few requests, probably once a month, seeing where that's at. You know, I'm ready to send it out to bid. I just, the typical procedure was to have legal review and say it's okay. But, you know, I'm okay with the documents, so, you know, I could submit them out. The way the bid is set up.
No, just because you're okay with it, we need legal to review it.
Right, and that's
so
why.
you got to stay on them, and we can ask about it too, which I will commit to you to do.
And Enberg Miller revised those bid documents, instead of just being the one shelter, they have the other two as alternates, so that at least we have a price point. So if I am able to get a grant in time, we could do the other two. But that's the way the bid document's set up right now. So,
I guess I'd like to go back then with the 3 items with Tom. Is that just a failure to communicate between the two of you to get those numbers, or?
yeah, some of that's my lack of communication. These were carried over from past directors' narrative, and I know at some point they need done. So I just wanted to have them on the radar, but I don't have prices for that. So Mr. Poplick and I have had conversations kind of at the lake. You know, it was my understanding last year that all maintenance contracts needed to go through him. So him and I had a discussion, for example, on the outhouse doors at the lake, that, you know, he was okay with me getting the bids and getting that, as long as I communicate with him that we were taking care of that, to kind of alleviate the load on him for some of the things that are further out from town.
Well, I think what I'd prefer to see is I mean, it's a matter of sitting down and having a conversation and getting these numbers put into place. And when you look at like the outhouse roof itself, I mean, you're saying they may last another year, which means that they're probably leaking and needing repair right now if they need to be replaced in a year. So those things, I mean, it's simply showing up at one person's office or the other and get it hammered out.
Okay.
I guess I'm saying, I just don't want to take them off the table. You know, if they need to be replaced, then let's get a number so we can figure
Okay.
out whether they can be replaced.
Mr. Chairman, my only thought is, we just don't know what those numbers are going to be. It sounds like we kind of know that they'll get through a season or more. You know, I just wish we had either been able to hear from Tom or have a better understanding now of why we're at where we're at. I don't have a problem thinking or listening to numbers that come in after today's date, but it kind of opens the floodgates maybe for everybody else to do the same thing. You know, that's why I was trying to figure out if these are emergencies, or if it's just more deferred maintenance, so I don't know where we go.
I don't want to open the floodgates and have everybody come in here, but at the same time, I also don't want to listen to the rest of these to where people aren't communicating with each other, so we don't get the numbers, because that doesn't happen. So
Well, yeah.
So whether we get the numbers and use them right now, or we end up using them next year, those numbers need to be taken care of. I mean,
Yeah.
between the two of you.
I'll get with
we know.
Tom and work on the numbers and see if I can't get him or one of his staff to go up there with me and look at conditions, so we have a better evaluation of them.
Why is the lodge at 1.6 when we think it's going to be significantly more than that?
Because that was Mr. Chairman, that was the number, the initial number that was given when we started discussing it.
That's what was budgeted, was 1.6 from our side. And then the remainder was supposed to come from the school district, from the rec board. And that's all we ever had, was 1.6 in there.
But I think my point isn't that I know very well that that's what the number was, but we're not in that 1 cent now. And so if we're looking at the number for the bear trap shelters, for example, went to, I think that number 412 reflects what the architect. or
Yeah, that
whomever-
was the
Let me
estimate.
finish. What the architect or whomever says is the current number, right?
Right.
So that number didn't stay the same, even though it didn't get expended. The new lodge number did stay the same and also didn't get expended. So my question is, shouldn't we be more realistic and maybe put it in parentheses that maybe it's going to be 2 million or 2 point whatever?
So the conversation I had with the architect today, he called, and after he sat down with Caspar, it looked like it was a reduction to 2.7, but I don't think that took into account any redesign fees at this time. This 1.6 has actually probably been reduced by, I believe, $172,000 from the architect fees. But I didn't have a chance to break that number down. So I left it at the 1.6 because the lodge has been, it was at 3.2. The school district says $500,000, $750,000, $1 million, and I still haven't, I've sent an MOU to them to fill out and put the number in there. I have not received that back. I've heard that they just want us to put a number in for an ask, but I was sending them the MOU that they required, and I figured they would fill out the number that they had.
So on the MOU, I talked to Ray here not too long ago, and they're gonna make one change, and then before sending it back, and then he was going to talk to the board itself, that portion of the board, to get a idea whether it's gonna be half, 3/4, or 1. So I need to contact him back, and I don't know if they should be right at having that meeting here pretty soon for that, so. And then it'll come back to us and go to legal, and, yeah.
Are we ready to move to the lake? Okay, all right, so after speaking with Tracy last week, I adjusted my narrative a little bit. My salaries increased. Originally, I had a salary increase of $9,269. That increase is now only $4,102. Where that came from was I had put $1 an hour proposed wage increase for 2 of my staff that were reaching their 1-year mark. So I took that out. That decreased the Wyoming retirement. It increased the Social Security by $257 instead of $574. Increased the Medicare $59 instead of $134. Decreased the medical insurance by $7,980, which not quite sure what. I double-checked my calculations, but I'm not quite sure why it did that. So anyways, that's a decrease. The unemployment insurance was now a decrease of $3,895. Workman's comp was an increase of $679. Utility services is an increase of $5,000. Our grounds maintenance and landfill, which is our trash contract, is increased by $5,000. In building repair, maintenance, and cleaning, I decreased that by $15,885 to more clearly reflect the expenditures that we have. And our motor fuels at the lake increased by $10,000. So overall, there was a decrease of 0.48% over last year's budget, which is $12,000. The lake capital expenses budget line is at $250,000, which it was last year. So I listed potential projects that need to be done out of that. The EPA is requiring generators for our water and sewer, for our lift stations and our pump. The trailer bathhouse, the electrical in the interior Currently, the electrical's not working. We're trying to get a contractor out there to fix that since the roof has been repaired and we no longer have water leaks. My staff requested a 24-foot gooseneck low-deck triple axle trailer for $25,000. They also requested a 835N John Deere Gator because the one they have is starting to reach end of life. I have picnic tables and fire rings in there for $40,000, and then 10 more additional outhouse doors and frames for $35,000. Additional projects out of the 1.5 million RMP implementation, I think is what, or master plan implementation is what it's called. Completion of the die-based construction, that number I had at 1.25 million. That's because I submitted this at the end of April and we were still early in the project. I just submitted a pay app voucher, paid this year, so the remainder of that contract is $501,718.26. The Pathfinder walking bridge just below the dam across the canyon. The first year I was here, we did had an engineer look at it. He put together a plan. It's very specific, details the welds, the plate thickness, the boards that need to be replaced, everything like that. So to get that out to bid so we can reopen that because it's not safe right now, we have it blocked off, would be about, my guess is $200,000. But without sending it out to bid, I honestly don't know because the location is quite difficult to get to. And then this is down the line. I don't know if it would be this year, but we need a new maintenance building out there. And the sheriff has shown interest in having part of that building and possibly getting a Coast Guard grant to help assist with that. I believe the building in-site implementation could be done for $800,000 or less. That does not include any grant money at this time. Other projects I did not list were improvements to the Sage Campground and Weiss Campground at Pathfinder. I know the trailer park needs some work and we've gotten clarification from Bureau Rec. So this 1.5 million is flexible and could be utilized for different projects. These were just what I came to mind with as the higher priorities. And so that's kind of the summary of the lake budget.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a question, just for my own personal knowledge. Mike, how many employees do you have that are full-time?
So I have 2 full-time staff on the mountain, 2 full-time at the lake. I have 1 supervisor that oversees those 4. I have 1 full-time administrative assistant and then myself, so
Do you have
7.
part-time people?
So we have seasonal caretakers. I have 1 right now. I'm still trying to hire some more. I have 1 on the mountain, and then I have 2 at the lake, and I have a potential hire that's broke down in Lusk that's supposed to be in to go through the background.
Thank you.
But in my budget, I have budgeted for 4 seasonal caretakers at the lake and 2 on the mountain.
Thank you.
Michael, would you run me through what you see as the top priorities for the lake capital expenses and then the additional projects you have listed? If you'll give me kind of some idea, that'd be helpful.
So the EPA has changed a lot of rules, and depending on the federal administration, I believe that the generators for the water and sewer are probably the top priority. The trailer bathhouse electrical interior, right now, we have no lights in that bathhouse, and every time you flip the breaker, it just trips again. With the roof being repaired, we no longer have water leaking into the outlets and light sockets and whatnot. So currently, we've been trying to do some of that work under our current budget, and we have not got that finished yet. The gooseneck trailer that could probably wait. My field super is very eager for equipment, but I think we can survive with what we have. Also the Gator, I think we'd probably get a couple more years of life out of the Gator at the lake. The one on the mountain is in the one since 17, and I think it's scheduled for fiscal year 26, and we should be able to make it there. That one's closer to end of life than the one at the lake. Picnic tables and fire rings are just a constant thing to be replaced. Part of the diabase contract, the contractors putting new ones there. So we removed, before they started construction, we removed those because they were in pretty good shape. So we're using those 10 elsewhere throughout the park. But I think we have 85. I would have to look. We have quite a few at the lake. So the 40,000 would probably get us 18 to 20 campsites from what the current cost for a fire ring and table is. The outhouse doors, they're rusted out, they jam up. We get calls somewhat regularly. The SO gets them somewhat regularly that somebody's stuck inside because the door's jammed. So I would say the EPA required generators, and then the outhouses, and then the tables and fire rings. Well, sorry, EPA generators, the trailer, bathhouse, electrical, and interior. For example, the shower floors in that bathhouse are, I wouldn't call them wooden pallets, but somebody constructed them similar to that, so we'd like to actually get a regular shower basin that's easier to clean and maintain. So the bathhouse would be second, the outhouse doors would be third, and the fire picnic tables and fire rings would be fourth out of that 250,000. And I left in the budget $100,000 for the assessment and design of the water system from our well and tank through the trailer park and to the marina and all that to get a design so we can go to bid and get that estimated. Now, the Bureau Rec, as I understand it, they say that needs to come out of water and sewer restricted fund, which does not have the funds for construction of it. It does have the funds for the design, but that fund builds up over time, and I don't believe I brought those numbers with me.
Michael, just for everybody's information, he estimated those roofs at $15,000 for all five, and that's if he doesn't have to replace the plywood. So,
Oh, for the mountain?
yeah, so if you do have to replace the plywood with those, you can add another $300.
Well, and honestly, I would prefer if we could change them. They're a slanted roof, and they don't do well, so if we could go with a gabled roof, a peak, that would shed the snow better on those.
Well, it's real easy to build that thing like we did the one in Ponderosa and just elevate that center
Right.
wall and put a little pitch on it so that it slides off. That's pretty simple process.
Mr. Chairman. In the capitals, you have 44 fire rings, picnic tables. Is that for the mountain or for the lake?
No, this is for the lake.
Okay, so the capital for the 40,000 for the picnic tables, fire rings, that's for the mountain? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Michael, just to verify, you're asking for picnic tables and fire rings at both the mountain and the lake?
Correct. Yes, correct, there it is.
Thank you.
I overlooked that when we were discussing the mountain, page 2, or page 3, I guess.
And then we were discussing fuel the other day and other departments or agencies. Did you check on that?
Yeah, so I went through the numbers. The Casper Mountain Fire District utilizes our fuel from our maintenance shop to fuel their equipment on the mountain. Last year, I went through the records, and they utilized 333 gallons. So that's approximately, probably close to $1,500 at the current rate of fuel. And they did not have any fires or anything like that. From my understanding, I was speaking with Mike Hagler and Joe, my super on the mountain. This is, there's a long-standing agreement that we provide fuel to the Casper Mountain Fire District. And I think it goes back over 20 years. However, I've failed to locate an MOU or any letter of understanding of that. So it came to my surprise when I found out they were fueling from there. How that came about, we were replacing the fuel tanks, and they were shocked that we didn't have any fuel for them. So, and I believe they have cards so they can fuel down at the Road and Bridge Department at that fuel as well. But, yeah, so that comes out of the parks budget.
You said you could find an MOU, but have you been able to follow up with legal, see if they've got something?
I have not yet. This happened in the last week or two.
Okay.
And I have not reached out to the Casper Mountain Fire District yet to see if they have those. Spoke with Mike Hagler, and he was aware of it, but he was unable to locate it either. We just did a cursory file review to see if we could find that. So that's something I'm going to continue to look into.
The card they use down here at the depot here, is it a parks?
So the way that works is each vehicle has a fuel card
Right, but
access.
is it coded to parks or to Casper?
No, that would be coded to the fire district.
Okay.
So for example, I fill my vehicle there and it's coded to the Parks Department. The rest of my staff fuels either at the mountain or at the lake. I'm the only one from Parks that fuels there, but I think all departments fuel out there for the most part.
But they do have their own code for.
That's
line
my
item for
understanding,
fuel.
yes.
Okay.
That maybe just have to be something that we do up there where we code what they use to the fire district instead of it coming out
So
of your budget.
they log it, we have a log book, and they log it, brush truck, command truck, engine truck. So we do have a log that they keep.
I'm just saying that that way we can bill that back to the fire district instead of it coming out of your budget.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're not as fancy. We don't have the computer up there. We just have a meter on the pump, and whoever's filling writes down the amount and the vehicle that they put it in and who did it. So
Same as what the SO does out at the lake,
probably, yes.
or used to.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You're up, Mike.
Good afternoon.
buy fuel from Midwest Ambulance, Fire, Mountain Fire. We buy everybody's fuel here, then we go back to the department and do it.
Okay.
So, starting out with the road and bridge budget, pretty much status quo. We have 17 employees, myself, the assistant, the office manager. We budgeted for 14 operators, I'm down to 9 as of a week ago. Got one in the works for hiring, he passes the drug and alcohol. Got 2 other applications that are probably promising. And the budget also has overtime pay in it. So I'm only gonna go over the line items that either increased or decreased for the sake of time. Salaries increased $125,073. Long-term retirement increased $29,266. Social Security, $7,754. The Medicare was $1,298. Employee medical did not change yet. Unemployment decreased. I had a multiplier in there last year that was screwed up, and that's why that decreased so much. Workers' compensation increased $3,810. Personnel training, I decreased. I had money in there to send people to CDL school. I can't get anybody, well, one of them quit now, but the 2 I had that were eligible did not want to sign the agreement we made up for the 2-year stay with us if we paid. They don't want to do it. So I put that back down. Utility services increased $930. Building repair and maintenance decreased, I'm trying to remember why that one did decrease. Oh, that had some stuff in there that we were doing for OSHA. We also do hoist and crane inspections. And then we had some lighting and stuff that was taken care of already. Still have some to do out there in the warehouse, which I heard Tom say this morning that was done, and it is not done. Anyway, that's the decrease there. The machinery equipment parts increased 3,000. Operating supplies increased. That's also some of the mag chloride. Now, this does not have the increase that I talked to you about a few weeks ago, which was $128,000 that they gave me to do the mileage that we do. I could take it up to that, but I'm gonna wait to see if the pricing doesn't change. You know, if I had to overrun it, I can take it out some other line items, possibly the asphalt and the gravel, but I hate to build that in there. Everything's in such a state of flux right now. With any pricing you get, that, you know, they're adding fuel costs, and, you know, overnight stays and all that stuff's in there. So I'm not gonna confuse that too much. I've increased it. I still think we can do magnitude of what we have to do there with some of the roads there. There are some segments that I could cut out that would probably impact anybody. So that's the reasoning behind that. So the budget ended up being $2,082,381, which is an increase of $140,168. As far as road and bridge. Capital funding request, we still have the Herbst gravel pit. That was $1,250,000. We get that out to bid. It's still illegal. Buffalo Creek gravel pit, exploration and development. That too is awaiting some legal review. That's $80,000. Pavement maintenance and the parking lot, road and bridge and parks. That's the parking lot directly behind the building. That's full of potholes, and you know you're gonna ask, well, why doesn't the road and bridge fix that? But I don't have a paver. I'd have to do with a grader, and it's really tough to try to go around everything with a grader and make that drain and look right. So if we decide to do this, it'd be getting somebody to come in and put an overlay on all that mess. So that's $1,360,000. That's total. The 1 cent 16 funding, haul truck, 170,000, two pickups, 70,000, 140 for both of them. The blade, they're allowing us to take 100,000 out of road fund monies now, which is the gas tax and everything, up to 100,000 and pay for blades now. We can't buy anything else with it, so that number, would help offset what we would have to take out of the 1 cent funding if we'd like to do that. And one of the vehicles I bought this year, I didn't have the money to put the utility box on it. I couldn't get it anyway. But that's 17,000 to put a utility box on that vehicle that's out there at the road and bridge right now. Of course, gravel for the roads. Here again, that's a moving target. I've got two major roads for a Pathfinder and Buckland 33, which are paved, but I'm gonna have to road mill parts of them that are messed up really bad due to the weather we had, and add gravel to them, and then poison spider going out before soil. We've already started adding gravel to that last week, but it's gonna be a continued moving target. Then bring these roads back up. That's a major flooding up with Buffalo over the weekend, and it's a mess. And then the neighborhood road fund, the 45,000 always been funded. So that's 977,000 sitting there. And the hot mix, 350,000. We don't always use that. I expect to use it this year because of the damage I had to roads. And the gravel, some of that gravel there, that 750,000 covers the rest of the remainder of what we're gonna do up there at the Big One Mountain Road. We've got gravel sitting there, it needs to go on yet, that we own for part of that yet, and then we'll be crushing it more, and some of that'll come out of there. The Long Canyon culvert has been sitting here for a while. That thing is an engineering feat. It's an old rail car. It's on a road that doesn't get used much, but every year it gets worse. And I've tried to get two different engineering firms to go up there and look at that and give me an engineering design to build a floodway on it, a spillway. And I just haven't got that done. Squaw Creek Engineering and Design, estimating $1,687,000. That too is in review with the legal department. It should have already been out to bid. Goose Egg Engineering and Design is coming up, so this will be the design that would be done. Got to go out to bid and get a consultant to do that. And then Circle Drive, that is the completion of the project next year. That number in here is wrong. That $2,008,000 is really $2,088,000. That's what was in that agreement. The cover page was wrong on the front of it. We all missed it, including the federal highway, but I had budgeted right in the road funds. I just didn't catch it. And so that number changed. However, it's still what you approved at the meeting that you had. The actual document had the right number in the guts of it. So we're okay there. And with that, I'm going to get 250-some thousand back on Cornish Road from the federal government. They sent me a thing last week saying that we saved that much money from what we paid them, so they're going to reimburse us. We'll be signing that here shortly when I get it down here. And so that number there's changed to $5,625,866 for that total column. And then, let's see. Well, I still have two office doors to get put on from last year's budget with Mr. Poplik. They aren't on yet. He said they're here. Doesn't mean front door, back door, the water's just pouring through what it rains like it's been raining. And then he talked about the roof repairs this morning of the warehouse lights. With that, I'll move on to the vehicle side of things. Does you have any questions, sir?
How long
My-
have your questions been in legal?
Pardon?
How long have your questions been up in the legal office? How long? Huh?
Sometime.
How
Well,
long?
Mr. Chairman, following up on Commissioner Laird's point, would you think that May 2nd, that's about when they were put over into legal, or do you think it's maybe before that, or?
Or some of them were prior to that. Yeah, I went over that in our Monday morning meetings a couple different times. And I get it. I mean, I'm just saying that's where so many projects are hanging up.
So there's an indication that maybe those things were, anyway, we need to follow up with them. But again, on Commissioner Laird's point, you've mentioned three things just off, in your presentation today. If you could have one right now, what's your top priority? What's the one that's really holding you up? Of those three, or of any others you haven't mentioned?
Yeah, the Squaw Creek project.
Okay.
If I got that today, it's unlikely we're gonna get that project this summer.
I have a different
I'll
question.
follow up on that.
I have a different question. Mike, do you have any gravel roads out there that need to be repaired that ranchers have been complaining about?
Well, right now, I've got about every road we have that needs help. Between the snow running off and the rain we've had, I just got called on, Natrona Bridge has got a big hole in it today, right off the end of it. Matter of fact, I got pictures of it, it's pretty serious.
Is there any that you can think of that have been kind of long-standing
Well,
that should be repaired?
when you say repair, I mean, a gravel road needs repaired every year.
Yeah.
It just does. I mean, sometimes we blade them 5 or 6 times, like Gary Dome, Coal Creek, some of those were just out there. Other roads, like Dry Creek, which gets all the hunting traffic mainly, it's got some washouts on it from winter right now, when the snow melted. We haven't gotten there yet. Everybody drives by them, and yeah, they see them, and we know they're there, but it's passable, and, it's not something I'm gonna go get right away with 9 people. We'll get them, but right now, we're doing dirt in the event center today. Everybody's up there.
Do you have job openings?
Oh, yeah, I just said that.
How many?
I've actually got 5. So, but try to get somebody to come in. It's the same thing you heard this morning. I had 2 I interviewed last week over the phone. They didn't want to come because of the money. It is what it is. Some of them don't have CDLs. I need somebody with a CDL as well as a heavy equipment operator. They got to do both. That's the way we make it.
Maybe we ought to waive the 2-year requirement.
Well, I have. It's just, I don't put that in the interview. That's just been this last year. I was trying to get 2 that we had to be brought on without CDLs. They're CDLs. And, but they just don't want to sign a 2-year that they have to pay all that back. It's $6,500. That if they leave within that 2 years, we're asking them to pay that back. And we can waive that, but they'll be gone tomorrow out here working for Joe Blow.
Yeah.
I don't know how to handle that one. Right now, I've got some applicants that look promising. We'll get them through back drug screen and whatnot. It looks promising.
How far behind are we on the money? How should we be addressing that?
A lot of these folks are coming from the mines, and, they're out there making 30-something an hour, we're at 21 plus benefits, and, it's to try to touch that, you could be stepping on everybody that's been there 20 years.
Yeah.
It's just not in the cards. I think you're going to see the economy change. I think you're going to see people wanting to go to work, having to go to work. I think the cards may change a little bit for us, but, I wasn't expecting this last gentleman to leave at all. I mean, he's hired him a year ago. And he got offered a better job here in town driving a truck that had more flex to his hours.
Mr. Chairman? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So I was just going to make a comment. Something's going on. One of the banks let go of 80 people by email last week. And that's due to partially, as I understand it, the real estate sales business, the mortgage business, because the interest rates have gone up, and that hasn't really caught much fire yet, but you tend to, the interest rates get up there too high, people don't borrow money. So that then comes back and affects other financial issues and affects the county's income and things like that. I think the county's income is going to be affected in a couple of ways, so. But I'm curious about getting people hired too.
Mr. Chairman. Mike, I don't know what the solution is. Everybody is looking for people who want to work at a decent rate, and it's hard, and I think it's really hard for you because a lot of your, some of your positions may be fairly straightforward, but it takes some time to figure out how to be a good operator, and you know that. One thing you've got is for contract labor, you've got $16,400, and it looks like that's been consistent with the year prior. And I was wondering if that ought to be a higher number so that you can hire more contract labor, whether it's to get out to some road that you don't have a machine available to get to, and there's a qualified person out there with a qualified machine, or if it's, kind of emergency snow work like we had this last winter. So I'm just wondering about that number, and I was also wondering about part-time operators, and if that's not maybe an option for you, kind of a seasonal thing. So I just throw those out there to see if there's something we can do to try and avoid the crisis of not having enough labor operators and not having enough anything when we have winters like we just had.
Across the board, the contractors I'm talking to get the same problem. They can't run their trucks. They don't have loader operators in the yards. And Root Hill, I was just talking to them the other day, it's sad. I don't know what you do. Part-time help, running $250,000 blade, especially these M-series, it takes a while to teach somebody that. Part-timers are probably not going to know it. Most of the miners don't know it. They run totally different types of equipment, and it's older, and we have to teach them. I mean, it's changing, but the mines haven't even upgraded to these newer blades in some cases, and it's different work. I mean, when they blade flat. They don't blade crowns. When I hire them, and I have to train them, it's a disaster. But, they're all tired of driving to the mines. So they love coming to work for us, especially with our 410s, and that's a benefit. You don't always get a weekend off, it's big. But, I don't know what you do. Everybody's in the same boat. I don't know whether it's plumbers, electricians, operators. I don't know where they are. But they aren't knocking down the door. I mean, we used to have people walk in the front door and just fill out applications. Now we got to stand out in front of the lemonade stand and just.
Well, but, and I think my point was, in light of that reality of you not being able to find people, and maybe you need to focus more, or maybe there's a way to focus more on contract labor, or.
Well, I have people that live like out on ranches that have offered to help us, run our equipment and do whatever. We'd have to figure out how to put them on the insurance. Some of them don't want anything to build it. But I'm going to talk to HR about that as an option. But, some of these other areas that we're a little bit behind on, or may not have the truck power to haul the materials quick enough, I plan on hiring contractors. I'll probably pick that out of gravel, though. I will put it in that lineup. I did it, give them 3 quotes or whatever, and then just start hauling. Because I've got 4 trucks, but I can't make a dent in what we've got out there right now. It's just, we're maintenance, we're not repair of 10 miles of road all at once.
Okay.
So,
What's your average hourly wage?
21.
21. And that's for somebody running heavy equipment and all that?
Yeah, that's where we start them. I mean, obviously, if somebody's got a lot more experience, which I'm not seeing it, we take them out and drive them and everything else before we ever hire them. But I teach somebody to run a blade, it's tough to teach somebody to drive a truck, and get that CDL. And there are people that have CDLs that haven't got the time in the truck. I mean, you can get the CDL.
Right.
It's like an airplane license, but you don't have the time.
Right.
And there's a lot can go wrong there. So I.
Mr. Chairman.
All 5 people.
Mike, real quick, if you don't mind, looking at capital and spreadsheet, and then also your numbers for, where'd it go? For capital. The one on your sheet is 136, 1.36. The one on the sheet here is 1.44.
Mr. Chairman, because I added $80,000 for a Jeep that he requested,
Oh, okay.
But that's
no. You had it in your 1 cent request. However, it didn't fit in the 4-year schedule that was previously approved, so I stuck it in that line as a placeholder right now.
Oh, okay.
And because that equipment, that 7135 line that you're talking about, Commissioner Milne, is going to be adjusted considerably because there was a couple of those gravel pits were approved this current fiscal in reserve. So that number will need to be looked at for sure.
Okay. And then, looking back at the 1 cent, your schedule versus the laid out schedule of expenditures.
So, Mr. Chairman, I left it as it was approved. I did not make any adjustments that Mike had put in his narrative. So that could be up for discussion
Okay.
during further talks.
Hey, Mike, I know this is sitting on the budget and stuff, but where we sitting with the Pathfinder Road with the damage that was done out there, since that's not on here and it's not on the,
No, it's not on here. The gentleman was coming down Thursday and Friday, the road mill is obviously caught in another disaster he's in because of the weather. He called this morning. It's going to be next week instead of this week. We're going to go out there and cut those damaged spots out and add gravel to them and get them hardened back up and let everybody drive on them. Then we'll try to go out there and overlay it before winter so we can plow.
is Knife River actually, are they gonna cover that cost?
They, yeah, it's interesting. They said they would, I haven't made them try to do anything yet because I haven't got the road ready, but, they said they'd give us some material. At one time, it was gonna be road mill shavings off the interstate up here, but they've already taken that up. And, I couldn't do it, it was raining and everything else. But, they said they would give us some material from, the pit out there, which is right across the road. They didn't pin down a number, they said maybe 200 ton, it may take for that, it is what it is. But, it's something better than nothing for us, because they're the ones that drove it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Move on to the vehicle one. Back here. Same thing, salaries increased 19,287, retirement change up 2964, Social Security 1,105, Medicare 280, and then unemployment decreased 2,486, workers' comp, that's going up 764. Vehicle services, I put 15,000 more in, just where we're headed. So that budget's, 1,186,921, so that's 37,000. And that, also still has the lower fuels as where they were this year, seems to be doing all right there, believe it or not. We did go over on, oil, lubricants, but that was because of the amount of depth we had to buy this year. There's found so much snow and some of the depth fine. Staying pretty much status quo with that. And, so the overall budget's $3,269,302.
Mr. Chairman. Mike, looking both at your servicing and then also back on your administration for machinery, equipment, parts, whatnot, you think you, with today's prices and everything like that and availability, did you put enough money into those?
Well, the one that I ran over on, we're gonna run over on the vehicle servicing one too, but in the county vehicle servicing line, I'm 8587.
Mhm.
That's mainly the SO trucks vehicles. And, I got slammed there. Yeah, they brought a lot of new vehicles on, and then, we take their other ones out of service, we have to have all the stuff removed from them, and, it's all cost, and then they put new tires on them as well when they get them in. Now, they're buying the first set, we buy the second set thereafter. They don't run them long enough to get a third set because they're wore out, but they might now that they're taking them home. We don't know how that's going to work out, they're not running this long. That should be a trade-off somewhere here, but, so I paid for all that out of, road and bridge budget, and then, the fuel and the parts.
Mike, I thought we discussed taking that, or putting that maintenance cost into the sheriff's budget so we could actually track that last year.
I thought it was on, sorry about that.
Do you remember that discussion?
Well, that's been discussed with numerous commissions over the 20 years I've been here, and it hasn't happened.
Yeah, because that was one of the things I very specifically remember, because we wanted to know what the actual cost per vehicle was and know if it was going to go down now that they were actually utilizing one truck per person instead of the other way around, so.
Well, we can still show you the cost of the vehicle operation, and I can break out all the fuel. I mean, the fuel probably isn't really going to change a lot, but the amount of times that they have to replace those units should change. They ought to live longer. So we can still show you those costs, based on record maintenance and fuel consumed. But yeah, that's never been the case with the county back charging, anybody, parks or any other department for that expense. I mean, it's still all the same pool of money that we pay for the fuel out of. But it's accountability. If you wanted to know what all that was really costing.
Well, that's what we were talking about, was the accountability side.
Right.
It wasn't so much that it wasn't coming out of the same pool, but it sure makes it a lot easier when you can
Yeah.
look at things and say, this is what you're actually using, and this is what it's costing to operate these vehicles versus other departments. And I think that was, I don't know, Jim, if you remember that discussion or not.
Well, numbers I've run in the past, basically the sheriff uses half the cost of the fuel line item in gasoline, and we pretty much use the diesel.
Yeah.
So it's a split there, but we have run numbers. It's an effort to do it. You have to get into the program, pull every vehicle and put it all together. But, in a nutshell, you can divide it out by the cost of that fuel real quick. I mean, that's not going to show you the maintenance side of it. And a lot of this stuff goes back to the manufacturer with these computers on it. I mean, it's another ticket.
Yeah, you can't work on them.
Well, we're getting limited.
Yeah.
Everybody is.
Yeah.
I had a question about
I had a question about the gas pumps. Is there nothing on the gas pumps to show who's using it? And
Oh, yeah, you have an identifier number. Each vehicle has a number and each person has a number. And you have to put both those in, so I know who even to get in our gate, I know who came and went through the gate. It's hooked up as a gas pump, similar to what the city has. very similar. So I know everybody's getting fuel. Now, where they're fueling on the mountain or fueling at the lake out of tanks, it's on the honor system that you write it down. But there's not that much fuel sitting there.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else?
Don't unless you guys do.
Any other questions? Okay. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
That's what I just asked about. Lights have been paid for. They just haven't been delivered yet from the warehouse out there, so. No problem. I'm just saying, it's what they put it out houses and stuff like that. That was brought up, so that it was, it has been, Tommy, what those numbers were this morning. We'll get to it yet, but Mike was said, Tommy, but back then, we could sit here and have a discussion, and you get the answers while we're sitting here. But those two,
Do they not get along?
no, they don't. I don't know, but there's been.
Do you know, when I sat through this, you know what goes through my head? Come back to me, will you? Just come back to me for a minute. That was a good one. If we had, I always say this, I preface this when I say this, but I use the term,
It's not my problem. This? Well, that's pretty technical.
Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay, it's all yours.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, if you would like to please look at my narrative, and we'll start with talking about the salary line in administration, which ends in 01, account lines ending in 01. For many years, I have fought the fight that a clerk is a clerk is a clerk, according to a wage study that was done back in 2006, whenever that old one was done. And then seeing and witnessing a lot of inconsistencies across the board as far as my clerks versus Jill's clerks versus Tom's clerks versus the sheriff's office clerks. Decided to work with my fellow electeds in the departments that have the clerks that are most comparable to mine. And that would be the treasurer's office clerks, clerk of district court clerks, and my clerks. So what I had started to do a couple years ago is I started a step and grade type system, classifying my clerks as a clerk 1, 2, and 3. Based on job duties, years of service, that sort of thing. Because I thought, the step and grade system works for the sheriff's office, so why not put it in place for my office? So I started working on that a couple years ago. So I have all my clerks in the appropriate job classifications, such as a clerk 1, 2, and 3. Then the wage study came out, and we did the min, mid, and max. So talking with my fellow electeds a couple months ago, we're like, okay, we need to continue this path that we're on to stay consistent, to stay equitable across our comparables, meaning our clerks. So we implemented a step and grade system, which we worked several hours on. We took a conservative approach, and we took the midpoint of Danielle's wage study, and then we adjusted up and down as a step and grade. So we got all that hammered out, and we worked for, like I said, quite a long time on that. Well, got to talking to Danielle again, I think it was early last week, I think, and she says that a lot of entities are going away from the step and grade approach, and they are going to this min, mid, max matrix. Reason being partly is because my clerk 1, 2, and 3, that would be, it's hard to maintain the different levels in a step and grade. Basically, if they are a clerk 1 for so many years and they go up to a clerk 2, then, if you put them in that particular step and grade system, they may be, per that step, underpaid according to what they're currently making. So we're like, okay, we're going to revamp everything that we just worked on. So again, myself, the clerk of district court, and the treasurer implemented a min, mid, max structure with a more conservative approach than the initial wage study. The commission instructed the departments to continue the movement of keeping positions at market. Therefore, we feel this structure will help with longevity and provide consistency and equity. So with that, this does not result in additional funding requests for my FY24 budget salary line. So my budget request in that particular line is status quo per your direction. However, that may not be the case in future years. So as I said earlier, as the wage study was a great starting point, there were some inconsistencies that I think need cleaned up that are going to take time to do, not just get done in a month or, even several months. I think this is a big undertaking. It's a lot of manpower, a lot of hours. I think it needs to be a lot of department head and elected officials' cooperation and time vested in this because it is important. Again, Danielle was up against a restricted budget. She was given a budget that really wasn't, I don't know if it was logical in my mind. Also, some job descriptions I feel were inflated. If you put the word specialist on the end of a job description, then you automatically get put in a higher job class. Well, that's ridiculous. I have real heartburn over that. And also, there was a time restraint on the overall study. So I think we need to take I would like to see more time given to approach these inconsistencies. And with that, I would like more interaction, perhaps, with the department heads and the electeds, more time given. I know everyone's extremely busy, but I think it is a great, I think it's something we need to invest in is our employees. I'm down 2 positions currently right now. I had one, she lasted a week and quit. I have one that I can't fill. Not only, we talk about certifications and you get $1 more an hour if you have a certification. Well, my clerks aren't afforded that. Neither are Tom's clerks nor Jill's clerks. My clerks have to know statutes. They don't go to a class. They have to know the law. Okay? So like I said, we went a very conservative approach, and I feel confident on what we did, and did kind of speak with Danielle about it. So she wasn't, kept out of the loop. But again, it did not impact my budget. I have it within my budget, but that will not be the case going forward. But I would sincerely stress that we need to keep the momentum going of this wage study that was done in November. So with that, any questions on that portion of my budget?
Yeah, I do. I have a couple. I agree with what you're doing, and I agree that we might do a few things that would make us the jewel of Wyoming for people wanting to work in county government. I'd really like to see that, where we treat our employees and the people who work for us with honor, dignity, and more money. And I think we can do that. So if that's what you're working towards, you certainly have my support about it.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Yeah, Tracy, this goes to the admin sheet as well as, I'm going to skip ahead just a little bit because it makes sense to me, into the mail worksheet as well. Do you think you've added enough for potentially the amount of people complaining and what I see coming with the BOE? Do we have enough funds for those stationaries, postage, da-da-da-da-da-da?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Milne, I thought about that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure how many formal appeals we're going to have and how many mailings and so forth that we're going to have to send out. So I'm not exactly sure, to be honest with you. I did increase that account line by a bit.
You're right up to, yeah, just about. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I was listening to you as well as Squeaky over here.
So if there's no further questions regarding the salary line, then I'll move on. Stationery and printed materials increased due to inflationary cost. Office supplies increased due to inflationary cost. Elections obviously decreased since there's no election this next fiscal. to Commissioner Mills' point on the communications, the mail and phone service accounts, I did increase the postage box rent due to the BOE appeals, or excuse me, the postage, yes, the postage line, I did increase that due to that. Account line 7310 decreased due to phone software update being completed. And then the telephone equipment and maintenance, that amount is in there for new phones. And Eileen, is it, how many phones is it? 150. That is for 150 new phones across the board. And if you have questions regarding that, I bet Eileen would be willing to answer that.
Go ahead.
Okay. And last but not least, in my equipment line, I am asking for $3,771 for 9 chairs, office chairs for staff. I needed 19, however, risk management afforded me some money to purchase 10, so those are on the way. Therefore, I will need 9 more to complete out the request for my staff for new chairs. Any questions?
Look like it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Just say ditto.
Tom?
Ready?
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, my big thing was the salaries. Within the last year, I've lost 2 very good clerks that went to work for title companies and are getting paid more because of it. And so that's a good part of this, of working this salary thing. I sure will have to adjust it as we go through the year or the next couple of years. But I have requested, based on what we worked on, increases for those people that, well, deserve it, the people that work for me, and especially those who deserve it. Then everything else in general is about as usual. I didn't have much change. I think I had increased equipment a little bit, but not much.
Talk about how your people were classified in the wage study, how you didn't have your job descriptions.
Oh, yeah, we didn't have, like Tracy said on the job descriptions, we didn't have such. And we're trying to fit them in now.
So how many jobs do you have open?
Don't have really any right now.
Even the two people who left?
Yeah, we got them replaced
You got them replaced?
with new people.
So Tom,
Learning.
looking at the different classifications, do you have an idea of about how many clerk 1, clerk 2s, and clerk 3s you're looking at and then the supervisory positions?
Right here. It's right here.
Oh, okay.
4 clerk 1s, 4 clerk 3s, and 2 clerk 2s.
Okay. Yeah, we've got 4 clerk 3s, 4 clerk 1s and a clerk 2 right now, or 2 clerk 2s, I'm sorry.
2 clerk 2s?
Yeah.
And how many supervisory?
There's 1 in motor vehicle and 1 in property tax.
Mr. Chairman, and the step and grade sheet that you have in your books with my narrative anyway is not what I am currently presenting to you. We are reverting back to the mid-max matrix that the initial wage study was put together with. This approach, the new matrix that I'm talking about, is less stringent than that.
Yeah, I was just wondering approximately where they were going to fall out into that different group, not necessarily where they fell out in the level in there, but just how many of the different levels of clerks you had.
And Tom didn't have job descriptions for his clerks, so that's another thing that we've been working on throughout this process with the 3 of us. He's been classifying his people in the appropriate job category.
Right. But essentially, that's all I have. The payroll is the big thing, so we can keep these good workers.
Anybody have
Any questions?
any questions?
Mr. Chairman, Tom, there are a number of budget request items, not of huge amounts, but contract labor, motor vehicle temporary forms, personnel training. You expended a little bit there last year. Equipment. There are a number of these that it looks like for multiple years, there hasn't either been any expenditures on those line items, or that it's been half or less of those items. And so have you given thought to not asking or not including those amounts for this budget year?
Yeah, we could do that. That would be fine. There's, like you say, there's not usually anything there, or there might be one year all of a sudden where there's a lot more than what's budgeted for, but it has pretty much evened out through the years, so.
Again, they're not huge amounts, but it almost seems like kind of a placeholder, and maybe we don't need that.
Yeah, just in case thing, but yeah, that's fine. I agree with that.
Tom, right along with that though, you also have abandoned vehicle expense where there hasn't been anything actually budgeted, but you have a big expense.
That's a journal entry that has to be done at the end of the year. So this journal entry will be adjusted out towards the abandoned vehicle fund into another account.
Okay, so it's just an accounting number on here. It doesn't really,
It's not a
there's
budget
not really an
request.
expense.
Correct.
Okay, all right. I appreciate that.
Does anybody else got any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to see you, Tom.
Yeah, I think so. Tom, can you hang on just 1 second? We're gonna have a discussion about the 98 million,
Oh.
About the what?
the money. You know, the money.
Yeah, be a good idea.
Basically, step in the sequence, but I mean, I mean, we can't.
It's only online.
Yeah. So you want to start it then, Steve, since with Chairman.
Sure.
Just break it.
Sure, Tom, we just want to have a discussion about the 98 million that is currently in the WyoStar 2 account. And obviously, there's been some withdrawals out of that and some concern with that account. So while we're here with you, if you could just, I guess, we want to have the conversation about the best move for us at this time with that account as to whether to, what we should do with that investment itself.
Okay. Well, we discussed a few different things.
You want me to kind of
Yeah.
give an overview?
Yeah.
Okay, currently, right now, we discussed this the other day, our exposure, the amounts that are in WellStar 2 right now, as opposed to percentages of our pool investments, percentages of the pool that we are majority holders of, and how the fund is naturally migrating out due to people chasing the current rate. So, in order to protect the citizens of Natrona's money, I've been talking to several people. We had Joan here, we had Troy here, talked to Tom, I've talked to a couple of you just to see what you guys were thinking and how we wanted to potentially move or adjust this, just to gather up some fact-finding information, basically. And what I've come to kind of as a idea is that we do need to reduce that risk, that exposure, or eliminate it, actually, right now. I'd propose that we move that money out of WildStar 2 in its entirety. We're going to take a loss, initial loss, but with the rates, if we reinvest it with the rates that are in class or WGIF, WGIF, we should be able to recapture what we've lost within about a year and a half. It looks like, sounds like, from what everybody's talking, potentially. Everything, again, just the same as why it was put in there, what we're doing now, there's potential risk in anything other than putting the money in a jar, pretty much. So, or doing a bond schedule, which I think we need to do, but currently I think we need to pull that money in its entirety. And then at that point, what we decide where to put it, whether it all goes to class, all goes to WGIF, or we put it in bonds or whatever, that's what we do. But, or we can spread it, divide it out to amongst the others. WildStar 1 has significant more funds in it. We'd be a whole lot less in the percentages if we added some or all of it there. However, it also is being drawn down due to natural rate migration. So currently, I'd say we put it into class or WGIF, and just as a harbor until we decide as a board of specifically what we want to do with that money, the percentages where we want to move it around.
So how much are we talking about losing by moving all that out?
Probably about 3 million.
So how
It
much,
beats losing all of it, though.
how much is in there that you're proposing to move?
98 million.
So, and then, right now, and I think you need to explain this for the public who hears it, as to why we would be losing 3 million?
So we are, at the time I did the last percentages and whatnot, we are at 73% of our pool is within one fund. At that time, we had 40% of that. We owned 40%. We were a majority holder. if the numbers of what was withdrawn lately hold out, we would be at approximately 45% at this point. If we don't withdraw it, what's happening is, as people withdraw, natural migration out of the fund, chasing that rate, they're having to sell their sureties short. So they're losing money. As that continues, eventually there's going to be, we don't want to be there in that fund with them having sold all the sureties, all the, they're
So
everything's short.
some action by others is causing us to lose money? Is that
Yes.
kind of a short way of saying it?
Yes.
They-
So the issue is when I checked with a couple of financial guys, one of them suggested, and I think I told you, putting it in treasury
Mhm.
bonds at 4.5%. There's no fee there, and there's no real chance of losing a penny there. Now, where the investments are now, do they charge us fees?
No, well, there's one in there somewhere, but I don't know what it is. Nobody can really tell me. It's the state, it's controlled by the state and JP Morgan, and I can't figure it out. Neither has anybody else figured it out.
So this one that spoke to us here a week or so ago, do they charge a fee?
For WGIFI, I'm not sure if there's a fee or not,
It's,
or what it is. If we have them manage it, yes, there definitely is.
So what I'm being told is that there's great opportunities out there that we are charged no fee.
Right. And that's where you're talking about the bond.
Well, other
And-
things as well,
And so if we buy the bonds, and not have somebody manage them, but actually buy them, then we get charged that one rate, that
Right.
one-time sales. And that'll usually be by the seller, or what's their name?
But that's 90 on 98 million. That's going to be a pretty good fee.
And what's the return on those bonds?
I don't know what the rate is today.
I'm not
Give me a
sure. We
rough,
didn't,
give me a rough idea. Mid-fours?
I would
Yeah,
say.
mid-fours, classes
yeah.
running about 5 right
I'm
now.
just,
5.1,
just so we
5.3.
have a rough idea.
Yeah.
No,
What's
I'm
wrong
not
with the
holding-
treasury notes that are 4.5% and no fees?
No, and that's what I'm saying, is we'd be buying those.
Because I don't think there is a fee with those.
There's the guy. You must have been watching. Oh, okay.
I know First Interstate Bank, Jim, is dealing with large sums of money. I think they handle a lot of the city's money.
Right.
And it's my understanding that there's no fees.
They're charging the city a lot of
Yeah, I
money to
thought they
manage.
were charging.
Do you think so?
Yeah, they are.
There's fees.
There's,
It would always surprise me if there wasn't any fee.
but anyways, so my main concern right now is we need to move that money out so that we protect that 98. Yes, we make an unrealized loss, a realized loss of 3 million, but we'll be able, we move it into class or something that has a higher yield rate right now, and we'll be able to recapture that potentially within a year and a half. We don't want to go under a managed account and have somebody manage the bonds that we buy. That Tom can do that themselves, manage those and do a ladder. When we buy those, they just sit on them, and as they mature, we reinvest or we use or whatever, but depends on how we have it laddered out.
I think the minimum, isn't it, of 1 year? You have to,
6 months.
6 months.
for treasury.
You can get 6 months bonds.
With both Class and Jones Group, we can withdraw the money the very next day of deposit.
Well, the treasury bonds I'm talking about, is you can't withdraw the money. You get
No,
guaranteed.
I know. What I'm saying is just for right now, to harbor that money, save it so that we don't lose it, we put it in class or we divide it between the two. And then later, we all can figure it out, think about, potentially Peter had an idea of having a consultant talk to us that would have no financial gain, no horse in the race, that could advise us.
That would
And
be a
tell
good
us where to
idea.
put, advise us where to put stuff, right? But right now, we'd just be moving the money, saving it. Yeah, we'll incur that realized loss, but we should make it back. But even if it takes 2-3 years to regain that loss, it beats losing and being the last man in that store,
Right.
losing the 98 million.
Right.
Hey, Tom, do you know what the rate is on 6-month bonds right now?
On 6 months bonds.
I know a year is between 4.5 and 5, depending on what you get, but
It-
About 5% or so. Well,
It depends on the ladder. When
Yeah.
they're selling it,
right,
you aren't actually going to
Well,
know
to-
the rate until you actually.
right. I'm just saying approximation. I'm not looking at for an exact number right now. I'm just saying, what is it? Do you know what it is, what the difference is? Because I know short-term right now, you actually do better than you do with the long-term.
are we talking about Wildstar or?
No, bonds.
No, bonds.
That ladder.
Oh, yeah, the ladder, well, that, let's see, what does he have here? He has 5.166. I got a projection for next fiscal year with the ladder, and it was 2,583,325 at 5.166%.
And
And
that's
that
on,
was
that,
at 50.
That's for
million,
that 50 into that ladder that Troy proposed.
Yeah.
but is that a 5, is that a 6-month or is that a year
I
requirement?
thought that, well, it was that ladder approach, and that was based upon,
Well, you stagger
I think it
them.
was 6 months.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, I'm
And
just
that-
asking to see where we're at.
The yield will go up and down, but right now it's about at 5.
Right, right. I'm just trying to,
Swimming class is 5.05, it's a pool.
yeah,
The class is a pool, and that's 5.05%. That has bonds in it also.
Tom, do you think that withdrawing this money now is in the best interest of the county and the people?
Absolutely, especially, is it Cheyenne that's withdrawing? They're pulling their money this week, and we don't want to be down to the last one
no.
in there.
So is it your feeling that we need to make this decision today?
It's within the next day or two, yeah.
And Nick, you're nodding as well?
Yes.
We don't want to.
Because we have the
We
40.
don't want
I
to
said the
be
memo
at
for
where do we-
50% or more.
Where,
of that
what
fund.
jar do we put it in when we take it out? That's what I'm wondering.
I don't think we have to make that decision today, and I really don't think we should. I think we've been lobbied by.
Well, if you take
two-
it out, where are you
let me-
putting
Let me,
Yeah.
let me just
Thank you.
say that I think we've been lobbied by two great firms. And I think they're just doing their jobs, helping us understand what options are out there. But I don't think that we need to make a decision to go with one or more or none today.
That
I
wasn't
think-
what I
I
was
think
saying.
I
What
think,
I wanted to know is if you take it out today, where do you put it after you take it out?
well,
Where does it go
we-
in the meantime?
let's ask the treasurers to put it in the most conservative, the treasurer
In the
put it
bank
in
or
the most
whatever?
conservative place.
Yeah, we'd have to put it in the bank until we decide.
Can the bank take it, that amount?
Yeah, they should.
And is it-
Will
and
the
is it
bank,
insured?
will the bank take that much?
And is it
That might
insured?
fall.
No.
It isn't insured.
Huh?
It won't be insured.
It won't be.
Only 240.
Oh, then the bank gets insured,
Well, only up to
FDIC.
200 and,
because we have additional pledging besides FDIC.
okay.
Well, if we're
And the, so Peter's right, we've been lobbied very well by two well-meaning groups that are also, they are selling a product. Both groups have given identical information though, without consulting each other. So, yeah, I think we trying to protect the citizen, this county's money, which is what we were elected for, was to watch over this county. We need to do what's right for this county, and that would be pull those funds.
And I don't disagree, but it's vague. Everybody's being vague here.
I'm not, I'm
So
saying.
here's what I mean by vagueness. You call up down there to Wildstar and you say, we want our 98 million. Now, how do they give that to us? In a check?
No, they would transfer funds.
And then, okay, so where do we say we want you to transfer that money? That's what I want to know.
Well,
It'll get transferred to the First Interstate Bank initially,
that's our main.
until you make your
account.
decision which broker you're gonna go.
So they would have the 98 million,
I mean, we let them know that it's coming, then we can get additional pledgings to cover that.
and then is there some sort of insurance on that money?
That's the
That's what
additional
he just said.
pledgings they would give us after we give them notice that that money's gonna be transferred.
Would they have the insurance for the entire amount?
No.
He's saying yes, you guys are saying no.
Well, I mean, there's pledgings.
There are additional pledgings, which is insurance. It covers the deposits.
Right.
Yeah,
So how do we,
It's coming.
if we say move that money, which I agree with, and move it to where, and how much insurance is there to cover the entire amount? Is it all of it, or half of it, or what is it?
All of it. If you give the bank notice that you're gonna put 100 million in, they'll get additional pledgings to cover that balance, insure that balance.
Do we have to pay that? Is that like buying insurance we have to pay for?
No,
They just give it to you free?
they just cover their deposits, cover the deposits.
It seems like we're talking about two different things.
I think we are.
It seems like there's FDIC insurance, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, right?
Right.
That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, what you're talking about, as I
Additional
understand it,
collateralization.
is additional collateralization that the bank makes sure that there are funds to cover that. But if we have a whatever Silicon Valley Bank situation, which we're not going to have with any of these banks in which we're invested.
I mean,
But
could
if we
visit with-
were, that $98 million is not insured in that sense. So you hope for the federal government swoops in that case too.
I mean, we'd have to get with First Interstate Bank and make sure, verify that this is, they're covered, but I'm sure they are, if they're aware and they have additional pledgings to cover them.
Well, can you go make a phone call right now and find out about that? Because it sounds to me like you're guessing when you say, I'm sure, I don't want to guess about anything with
Right, no.
$98 million.
That's why I said we can call First Interstate Bank and confirm with them to verify that first.
Can you go do that right now?
Yeah.
I'd like that answered before we.
And this, yeah. Pretty much. The other thing, like I said, the other two, the two that lobbied us, Joan and Troy, if we divide it, if we put it in whole, whatever, in either one of them, we won't be a majority holder. Have stated that they've got the funds on hand where they're able to cover that withdrawal if we choose to make a withdrawal the very next day. So it's the bank, those two companies, whatever we need to do, but, depending on what we find out here in a second.
Jim, this is a vague conversation for me for $98 million. I hear what you're saying, and I trust you, and I believe you. That isn't my issue. It's too vague for me. What I want to know is because I don't want to put it all in one place. We're taking it out of one place. Let's not do that.
Exactly.
So we might want to put it in 5 different places for all I know, but if you go buy treasury bonds that are solid, that are 4.5% interest, that lock it in for a year, I like that for some of that money.
No,
Because then I don't care.
exactly. If
We're
we-
going to get it back, whether the
So-
market goes up or down.
So if we do a bond ladder schedule, sequential schedule, every 6 months, then every 6 months, a bond rolls, matures, we can get the interest rate or roll that interest rate back in. We could use the principal, whatever we need to, but we can keep rolling it forward as well. And that's just a matter of management by Tom of those funds. And we could do, 5 million or 10 million or 1 million or whatever we want to do as a group. But that could lock, like you say, lock up, secure, say 50 million of that 98, whatever we want to put in. But that's a discussion for a little later, because that'll take a little more than moving that fund from
Yeah.
Star to.
I agree with that, too. All I'm interested in is when they send that money to some other entity, and that entity gets it, are we insured for that amount of money, or can they say, oh, something happened here, we had a bad deal at the bank, and you lost another 10 million?
That's what Nick's doing right now.
Because, as I say,
But as the Fed is looking at the rate here shortly, all indications are that they're not going to raise it. If they do raise it, that fund, Wildstar 2, is going to go down further. If further out, they are talking about potentially raising it, again, that fund rate will just drop at that point.
see, and I don't understand why we're losing money in that either.
In Wildstar?
Yes, I don't understand why we're losing money.
Because they bought their assets so far out, that don't mature so far out, that as people withdraw money, they have to sell those short. So that reduces the.
So it's like buying a stock that has gone down, and if you sell it when it's down, that's the money you get. If you pay $100 for a share of stock, when you bought it, it was 100, now it's 50. If you sell now, you get $50. Is that what you're saying is similar?
In a nutshell.
It sounds like kind of a weird investment to me, but I don't know anything. I don't know enough about it.
They bought too much out too far forward in the future, not enough to keep any investors whole as if they took money out in the short term.
But nobody had as much money in it as we do, I
Not
take it.
now.
I think we need to pull it out. of
Yeah, we do.
Wildstar, And then we can make an adjustment. As far as the ladder goes, you can actually set those up so you have one come due every 2 months. If you set it up over the year and then have relatively short-term investments.
So we want to make a motion on this, or just?
So, I'm hoping that we'll have an answer back here in just a few minutes. I did speak to legal. I want to make sure that we can do that here today. So once she finds that out, does a little bit of research into how we need to handle this, and then we can move forward and make a motion at that time. And we'll get an answer back to you, hopefully today.
I want
Put
to
this
take,
on hold and move forward with the
Yep,
sheriff?
we'll put it on hold. We'll have the sheriff come up, and then we'll get back with you today, Tom.
I just don't want to take it out and give it to Jesse James.
It is. My bad.
This is first interview. What does that mean? Yeah. Good afternoon, Sheriff's Department and Sheriff.
That's the excuse I'd use, or reasoning.
Sheriff, floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to come visit about the FY 23-24 budget. In front of you should have a cover letter that was included with the budget. That outlines a few different things, as well as the attached appendices. So it's a lengthy budget. I can certainly go through some of those talking points in the appendices, or stand for your questions, whatever is the pleasure of the commission.
We can go ahead and go through it.
So in Appendix 1, there's a cost breakdown of budget increases, and this is actual numbers that were submitted in the budget. So in the juvenile detention center budget, you'll see there's an increase of $7,000. That is for inmate boarding costs that have increased. In the administration budget, salaries and related burden and benefits have gone up $236,183.62. That is the most significant increase. Personnel training, we have increased $5,000. Repair and maintenance, $8,000. Clothing, uniform, and accessories, $5,000. Criminal interdiction support, $8,500. And community outreach, $7,000. So many of those costs are things that are beyond our control. Anything from travel expenses, fuel costs, for trainings, going to trainings, increases in instructor costs for outside instructors and those kind of things. Under emergency management, the salaries and related burden and benefits actually went down. There's a negative there of $503.70. And we did increase the siren system repairs and maintenance by $26,000. So originally, we submitted a 1 cent project request for some of those expenses for the siren maintenance. And the conversation at that time was probably that wasn't acceptable under the 1 cent project request, and it was something that's more appropriate to have under repairs and maintenance in a budget item. And that really has to do with replacing batteries at the siren sites themselves. Those batteries are very expensive. They last a few years, but we have over 30 some sirens out there. So every year we try to replace some of those batteries, keep those sirens operational. Under the detention center budget, you'll see there's an increase in salary related burden and benefits of $60,439.28. We did increase our cost for hiring, and quite a bit of that is in physicals. So we're seeing an increase in cost for background investigations, the time and effort that's put into that, as well as the Wyoming Law Enforcement Academy has a requirement now to have any candidates that are going to the academy have to have a physical medical assessment prior to going. So that's an added cost that's reflective in that increase. Personnel training, again, under detention center has been increased $5,000. Repair and maintenance, and that's outside of county maintenance budget. That's really has to do with things like detergents and cleaners and things like that we use inside the jail for repair and maintenance on our side. Utilities expenses, especially at the jail, have gone up considerably, so you'll see an increase of $15,000 there. Buildings, repair, maintenance, and cleaning, primarily on the cleaning side of that, $7,200 increase. Admission medical forms, those are the detailed forms that our medical staff uses to bring people into the detention center, those medical clearance forms. We've had to make quite a few changes to those in the recent year, and that's reflective of those increased printing costs. Boarding and inmates, that has gone up. You'll see an increase of $20,000 there. Kitchen support, $5,000 increase. In-house medical expenses, $2,400. That's a specific cost in that we'll incur for chart review, the medical chart review. So we have an outside physician come in and review the medical charts to ensure that our physician's assistant and our nurses are working in the medical standards. So it's an outside review to make sure what we're doing is correct. There's another set of eyes on it. So checks and balances. So actually, very small cost for a huge potential saving and liability. And clothing, uniforms, and accessories was an increase of $10,000. So our court security budget, salaries and related burden and benefits was actually a decrease of $5,340.23. So that brings your overall increases for the sheriff's office budget from the last approved and amended budget of $458,378.97.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a curiosity. Did your electrical bill go way up? Everybody's been telling us their electricity bill went way up.
We saw an increase in overall in all of our utility bills, especially at the detention center. What that exact amount is, I'd have to go look and then provide you the differences. But we have seen an increase overall.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. So in the budget, you'll see those increases that were outlined, and I also have included two specific requests that were not included in the budget. Those are on Appendix 3, and they're noted as the addition of one deputy sheriff position. And this is specifically one deputy that will serve at the Wyoming Division of Criminal Investigation Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. So this is an opportunity that was recently afforded to us. It's a new opportunity, and it addresses issues of that internet crimes against children in our community, and it provides us to an opportunity to focus effort in combating that problem. And the unique part of this is, although you'll see a total cost for the task force position all in is $107,017.31. We are, through a memorandum of understanding, we are afforded the opportunity to recoup about $42,000 of that through that agreement, and that's paid by the state. Very similar to what a drug task force officer up at DCI does.
Is that a sure thing? Is that a sure thing to get that money?
Yes, sir. It's a signed MOU, and we already have a similar relationship in place that's worked very well through the years for a drug task force officer. Mr. Chairman, also you'll see one other request, and it's specific to a raise for our accountant. This position previously did not have any supervisory duties attached to it, and due to the volume of work that position does, I transferred another employee and to work supervised by the accountant. So now the accountant has supervisory duties, and essentially what I'm asking is the ability to give that accountant a raise, which would be 6% to account for those incurred supervisory duties that position did not have before.
Mr. Chairman.
Jim?
So looking at Appendix 3 on the task force position, are you asking for the whole 107, or if you minus the 42K, then it'd be approximately 65,000?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Millen, so actually in the budget, I would request for the 107, and then the 42,000 comes back to the county.
Okay.
John, thanks for coming in today. I think you were here when I raised this point with the treasurer, which is, when I look at the year over year, going back the few years that we see on our sheets, there are a number of items that haven't been expended to the extent of the budget line item. Except I think yours has a 0 or 2 on top of what the treasurer's accounts were that I was looking at. So I don't know where you're going to end up for this fiscal year end, but if I look at, say, boarding inmate, line 8205 on the Sheriff Detention Center sheet, that's one where consistently, I think the 438 or 400 and now 458 is the budgeted item. Your office hasn't been close to that. Maybe it's been off by $100,000 under, which I appreciate. And I see that on a number of items. And so, we want to allocate what you need. And I know that we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow and whether these amounts are going to really be needed, but it seems to me that some of this is remaining constant, but I'm not sure it needs to. And in fact, maybe areas where we can cut a little on the budget if we're not expending it year after year. Any thoughts in response to that?
Sure, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Nicolason. So this year we'll have about in the $800,000 to $900,000 range that will be unexpended. And you do bring up a good point. And there are, with a budget that size and the dynamics of the sheriff's office, there's a lot of accordion or slinky effect that happens. So when we budget, and we've had this discussion before when it came to raises and having unfilled positions. So the budget accounts for, if all the positions are full, all 157 positions, if all positions for employees are full, if our jail is working at or housing inmates at a above average number, and it accounts for the higher end of averages for medical expenses for inmates, for things like that. So certainly a lot of those are very flexible. A lot of times they're on the lower end, and we certainly turn that money back in or we don't expend it. So the challenge is if we get that too close to zero, then there's no room to account for those fluctuations. And then essentially I would be planning to run a budget into the red, which is essentially unethical. So I don't know if we've ever had a discussion on the philosophy or the theory of running the budget. How far into the black do you run it, or how far do you budget it? What I try to do is budget it to where it accounts for everything. So you don't see, historically, you don't see the sheriff coming back mid-budget asking for more money to keep the sheriff's office running through the remainder of the fiscal year. So typically the budget that's presented to you accounts for full staffing, accounts for providing food for all the inmates at an above average housing number, inmates in our jail. And so we really look at it as that's everything that we need. And certainly there are a lot of little places where we don't spend that realistically, but we could.
Line 8214, prescriptions. It looks like it's remained at $235,000 for the past few years. This year, I guess we're at, as of April 30th, $86,000. That was one that kind of stood out for me. Is that prescriptions for inmates?
Correct. And that's one of those large variables. So there are medications out there that have a significant cost to them. Medications for HIV/AIDS, different types of cancer treatments, and obviously the sheriff running the jail has constitutional obligations to provide medical services to those inmates. So again, that's one of those potential areas where there could be a lot of fluctuation. We try very hard to make sure that we're providing top-level medical care to those inmates in our custody, but we also look for alternatives with the judicial system at more appropriate housing for them if there is some type of option like that. We try to be very frugal with, a combination between what's right for the criminal justice system and what's right for the public in spending their money. So we have those conversations quite a bit, and what's the best place to provide the medical care for these inmates. So again, that's one of those areas where the cost could certainly go over that very easily with one inmate. But again, I'd much rather, my philosophy is I would rather budget for that a little bit on the high side and run in the black, and then not have to come back mid-budget and ask for money if we run it too close. But it is consistent year to year that we give back a substantial part, or we don't have that expenditures.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, did that occur in 2023? Did money come back that you didn't spend?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Laird, so this budget will have not expended about $800,000 to $900,000 this fiscal year. So the last budget last year would be fiscal year 22, correct? 23. Last year's 23.
This is 23.
Yeah, 23.
Yeah, so, right. So this is 24 we're talking about. 23 will turn back 800,000 to 900,000, somewhere in there. Some of that's projections based on, how much overtime we're projecting to spend and that kind of thing. Last year, so it'd be fiscal year 22, yes, fiscal year 22, we did turn back a substantial amount too. So that's historically, and as long as I've been involved in the budget for years, that's kind of how it worked. We budget for full staffing, for what we project could be the above average number of inmates, the above average number of services, and then we turn the money back.
So if you don't have a catastrophe, we get a little bit of a refund kind of thing, huh?
Well, I think we all benefit if there's no catastrophe.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, John, looking through your steps on your non-commissioned employees, you have, some of them you have what the steps are, the timeframes, and others you don't have anything in there. And I was just wondering if there was a particular reason for that, or if you had that information as far as when those steps were going to be reached versus, you got 1 through 13, but you don't really say when, on the kitchen supervisors, but then on the controllers, you have the years and stuff like that. I was just wondering what those other steps were so that we had a better idea of what you were looking at.
Sure, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner North. So on the ones that have the timeframes broken down, you'll notice that those are different than the 3% or one step for 3 years of service. And the reason is about 85% of my staff has been under step and grade for 20-some years. And some of these positions, these are just civilian positions that are noted here, Some of those positions are included in that. So the controllers had an established step and grade process already lined out. They've had that lined out for 20-some years. It is different than what we have designed for the remaining 15% of the employees. So these steps, along with the deputy steps, were designed with a different thought process when it got started, but it has to do with being able to recruit and hire people for those positions. The fact, so if we're looking at grade 102 is for controllers at the jail, they work shift work, they're at the jail, some of the requirements that they have, so they actually are starting a little bit higher at a step 3, and then this process here, the years that they move steps has already been established. So all I did was duplicate that in this grade, if that makes sense.
That does on that. I'm just
Yeah.
asking about the ones where you don't have
So the
anything.
ones that don't, and I apologize for not noting it on that schedule, but that falls under what I outlined in the budget letter. So somebody would start, and then at 1 year, they would move 1 step. So 3% at 1 year. And that really just protects the investment that the citizens have made in that person and their training, getting certifications, or whatever we need to do in 1 year. Now they're a valuable employee, and we want to keep them. So that's 3%. And then after that point, every 3 years on their anniversary date would be 1 step. So 3% for 3 years.
Okay. All right.
Does that answer your question a little bit better?
It does. I was just
Yeah.
trying to figure out just exactly which one,
Sure,
what
and-
was what in there.
And the only reason I noted specifically the controller at 102 and the grades and the nurses at grade 111 is because theirs is different than that rule. They've already been established, and we have people in those grades and in those steps already. So to go in and change that idea would be counterproductive.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Jim?
Sheriff, not in your packet, but back in ours for Commissioner General Accounts, looks at JDC contract. Basically, it's, the contract is for the budget request is $2 million right at. And looks like the most we've gone, last year we approved 1.76, and back in 2021, it almost hit that as 1.76 that we expended. How is that contract increase up to 2 million from 1.7?
Mr. Chairman, those figures were given to me by the legal department based on how the contract currently reads due to inflationary costs.
Okay. There you go.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Millen, so that contract is negotiated between the commissioners, legal, the county, and the provider for JDC.
So does it have an annual step?
It's based on the CPI index.
Okay.
Yes.
That's what I needed. Thank you.
Any questions? All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Others back there. Yep. Heather? You have an answer? Or Nick, both? That's fine.
Yeah, she said that when hospital sale occurred, that they transferred the 116 million to First Interstate Bank, which went out and got additional pledgings, which covered that balance. But she wants a day to make sure that would be covered, and they would also need notice of the transfer to get the additional pledgings in place. But I will let you know tomorrow when she lets me know.
Heather?
If we get the money back, it doesn't lose shit.
You just want to stay there? Do you want to just sit there, or are they done with you? Okay, all right.
I think the biggest question that we're looking to get an answer for is, can we make a decision to pull that money today? I'm not concerned about what First Interstate or how fast they can do it. Can we make that decision?
Sure. So just doing, a quick check of the Public Meetings Act, there's a couple of ways you could potentially do it. You can do it today. It would be an emergency meeting, but any action that you take today, if it is an emergency meeting, it has to be basically ratified at another more regularly scheduled meeting within 48 hours. So if you make that decision today, make that call, we've got to have another meeting within 2 days here to ratify the decision. A special meeting, we need 8 hours notice, and then you can hold a special meeting.
We have a special meeting tomorrow.
Yeah, we could have it right after our regular meeting.
We do have a special meeting set for tomorrow, so we could take action today, ratify it tomorrow, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay?
Take action today and ratify it tomorrow.
Yes.
Do we, since the special meeting has been identified as being just this one discrete component?
Right, you do need a new notice going out that identifies that you're going to ratify or authorize the removal of funds. So basically, you need another meeting on top of your special meeting.
And we need somebody to put out notice of it, and she's gone this week.
Is she?
Mr. Chairman, I think we can get that done.
Is that 8 hours on the clock or 8 working hours or what?
It doesn't specify, so 8 hours.
So what time do you have to leave?
And then that way, that gives Tom an hour to start the process today and be continuing it first thing in the morning with First Interstate and State.
Okay, so I guess we'll,
So she has to verify first that they,
Okay.
did I hear something about her verifying first that the bank
Well,
secures the money, or is that already
We're
been
just
done?
saying, so, Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to hold the full funding of WildStar 2 of the counties from WildStar 2 and move it to the First Interstate Bank to, thank you, to account directed by the county treasurer, pending
Approval by First Interstate Bank.
pending notifications made and all that.
just to simplify it, you're making a motion to remove our funds out of WyoStar 2 into
As a whole, into
into an account identified by
this
the treasurer.
treasurer. Yep.
Which
there a
is First
second?
Interstate Bank.
It doesn't matter. It's to the account that he identifies. Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
So a motion made by Commissioner Milne, second by Commissioner Norris. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, we've heard from the treasurer today that, he thinks it's recommended by the treasurer that we move this, and this would be in the best interest to do it sooner rather than later, to do it in one lump sum rather than spread out over time. I think that we have a situation where we need to move this now today rather than, or get the process started today, make this decision today, rather than waiting until our next regular meeting, which wouldn't be until June 20th. I don't think we can wait that long. We've seen some losses through attrition or withdrawals thus far. I think we're going to realize some losses, but I think in the interest of the public, it'll be far better to realize those losses as we understand them to be, rather than to wait and do this in any other way. So I would support the motion.
So I support the motion conditionally with the fact that the money is going to be protected at the bank of choosing of the treasurer, which means that it's insured for the full amount. I'm assuming that's part of the whole thing.
Any other discussion?
Just as Nick explained earlier.
Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. There's your answer, Tom. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Okay, Mr. Whips and Jody Jacobson.
Mr. Chairman, they'll go separate.
No, okay. He had them on the same line, so.
It's because mine isn't that darn hard. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I guess I would ask, do you want me to go through this line by line, or?
We have been, but.
Okay, all right. And then, I guess for the, especially for the benefit of Commissioner Laird and Commissioner Nicolais and you, I guess the rest of them have been through this with me before, and it doesn't really change year to year. When I did this budget, I did do it under the status quo deal that you asked for, except for what salary increases have already been approved by the commission were added in on top of that. And then I also did a separate deal you'll probably see on the last page where I'm asking for something outside of the status quo, and that would be under capital expenditure or a special project here. So if we look at payroll, currently I have a chief deputy coroner, I have a lead investigator that is an investigator as well as basically the office administrator. So a couple years ago, we combined two part-time positions into a full-time position where that administrator could also work other sides of the house and be an investigator as well. Currently, I have 7 on-call investigators that primarily cover nights, weekends, holidays, things like that. And they are not paid a salary, but an on-call wage just for the time that they're out.
I'm assuming I probably don't have to explain Wyoming retirement and all those things that go along with salary as a percentage. The next thing would be consultant autopsy services. And I have that at $138,000. And when I set that, I basically set that based off of average percentage of autopsies I do per case. But you're going to find that this line item and a couple other line items are just almost parallel to what the sheriff told you, in that it really is, it's a best guess based off of trend, and will fluctuate up and down depending on the types of cases that we're working and what's going on. I'm going to say, well, it was right after I was appointed, we had to raise this. And it was a situation like he was talking about where it wasn't even a week into my appointment, and I was coming forward to the commissioner saying, I'm not going to make it. So when future budgets that went beyond that in the last 3 years have accounted for that fluctuating type of deal and saved that headache of having you guys trying to come up with money that wasn't in the budget. So forensic training has stayed basically the same, and I, like the sheriff, have to have my people post-certified and continuing training and specialty training in the different types of investigations that go on. The professional accreditation fees is something where I've kind of moved money out of one area and into another, out of the bottom line type of deal, because this year we are currently going through the reaccreditation process, which happens every 5 years. So this office has been accredited, one of the only 2 in the state, since 2013. And so every 5 years we go through a reaccreditation process with the International Association of Coroners and Medical Examiners for that. And so what's left of that, because I've already paid for part of that process out of this year, is basically having the auditors come out this fall and finish it up with a visit. Okay? And that's basically accounting for travel and what have you, those auditors to come out and actually do the physical audit of the office. Repair and maintenance, this is something that's always been zero, but again, I've reallocated and moved money around to account for this because our equipment obviously needs to be repaired and maintained, and it's been hidden under other line items in the past. And this year was a particularly bad year for things going awry. When we had that super cold snap, everything went to heck in a handbasket. And yeah, so I've got equipment repairs. You know, you're going to see line items on stuff this year that went way over and some that went way under, and it's primarily because of this, because of the maintenance of the equipment and putting contracts in place for things like the striker stuff to make sure that it remains maintained. Radiology expenses. This is one I traditionally make every year because, again, we don't do radiographs of everybody. You've already approved under the 1 cent funds in the next year or 2, I'll be getting a portable x-ray, and this will probably disappear as that kind of contractual cost with the hospital that we do. Regulated medical waste is something that's basically new to the budget because biohazard stuff that we've had in the past, we took through Wyoming Medical Center's incinerator. They've since shut that down, and now we have to go, the only other place is the landfill, and we have to pay for that. The forensic lab and toxicology supplies, this accounts for whenever I send toxicology out on cases to an outside lab to get toxicology results for those cases. I don't do toxicology. Some offices do on every single case. I do it just on the ones that the toxicology is going to help give me the answer to the manner and cause of death. So, and that's a pretty accurate number. As a matter of fact, we'll probably exceed that by 1,000 or 2,000 this year. Indigent burial, this is shoved in there for your purposes, and we've talked about this before. And it's a come in, come out type of deal under the new statute. So we pay for it up front, and then we process that paperwork to the representative of the Commissioners Association. Matter of fact, we're starting that process right now. We've gotten notice from them that they want that paperwork, so we're ready to give it to them. And last year, we took back in $26,500 in return to us, which was good. So it basically zeroes itself out, even though it shows as a line item here, it comes back to us. Travel, and this is primarily just me because anything else would go under training for my people, but my involvement in all the different things that I'm involved with in the state and what have you causes me to travel every now and then, and that's what accounts for that. Office supplies has stayed the same forever and actually is reducing at this point simply because one of the projects and missions I took on when I first came in was digitizing the office, which is complete, and so even things such as major paper costs and stuff of case files is basically been eliminated at this point. So, Morgan Field Supplies accounts for things such as body bags and all the supplies that we need to go and do investigations, as well as the examinations at the morgue and that kind of stuff. This is where things like maintenance has been shoved into because we didn't have maintenance as a line item number. So you're going to see on this year that particular one is in the red as a line item, even though we're doing a bottom line type of budget. But that's a line item that's in the red, and I'm creating or reusing line items under this year's budget and moving money around so that we can get a more accurate idea when we look at it as to where that money's going. Okay. So anyway, the total budget, and this again just reflects wage increases, would be $603,617. Under capital expenditures and then this separate project, this year I'm asking to replace investigator cameras. We've had ours quite a long time, and some of them are petering out, and we need to replace those, so that's at $3,000. I'm also asking, but it's not a priority of any sort, the cameras would be more a priority than the portable radios, but we have gone in the vehicles and everything else to the WildLink new radios. And I'm sure you all know the WildLink deal. I mean, we hook up all over the state, and it certainly makes it a lot easier when we're out in the middle of the boondocks in the county, being able to communicate, as well as in our function in the emergency management roles, as far as being able to hook up with other entities when that's required. But I'm asking to replace the 3 portable radios that I have that are ancient to the new WildLinks. So under capital expenditure, that total would be $16,911. And then under this other piece here, when we moved to the morgue, we basically cleaned out the courthouse of all the records, the coroner records, since the dawn of time, and those are stored in a land van out there behind the morgue in file cabinets. I've been working with IT and the state archives on a project to digitize those and get rid of it altogether, and eventually be able to shred all that and be totally digital in the end, as well as, you know, some of the projects you've had down here to do the same thing. Now, Wyoming Archives can't, because I'm not a state-funded entity, they're not going to do it for me. So I have to be able to go out, get all these things, get them scanned into a digital format, and then I can turn them over to the Wyoming Archives for storage at that point. So what I'm asking for is basically to be able to take one of the people that I already have, that is an on-call investigator, and bring them on for a period of up to 6 months and do a scanning project out there where we basically go back to the dawn of time and scan everything in and create this to give to the Wyoming Archives. And that would be no more than $15,000 total. I don't think it'll be anything more than that, which is cheaper than contracting someone to come in like I did with the VA and do it professionally with someone to do all that. I think that's something we can do ourselves, given a little bit of time, and then we can just turn that over to the archives. And then I guess just in, before I put it out for your questions, just a little back note on what this really is. We've given back, in addition to the indigency funds, just about $4,000 in funds that we've collected through fees and what have you. But every year since 2019, I, like the sheriff, have given back part of the budget. And the last couple of years, it's been around $50,000. This year, it'll be right around $75,000 that we return back to the budget. So, I don't know, any questions?
Mr. Chairman. Jim. Oh, thanks for being here today. Looking at your main page for the forensics lab and also field supplies, do you think you might need to add a little bit more into the budget, especially like the field supplies, since you're actually using up your surplus?
Yes, if that's something that you want to fund. So during COVID, we had a pretty significant supply of mass casualty emergency type stuff out there in PPE and that kind of stuff, and we went through it pretty quickly. I still have a fairly good supply, and I work with, I'm part of the Central Wyoming Healthcare Coalition, and keep stashes of things such as body bags for them, which could also be used for us in those kind of cases. But there are some things that we could build back a stock on that basically right now I'm looking at, I keep about a 3-month supply ahead of time for that, but it's not critical that I take and redo that, especially when you're looking at expiration dates and things like that. I'm sitting pretty good for that kind of stuff. We could build up a little bit in some things, but it's not necessary at this point.
Thank you.
And then the field supplies and that kind of stuff, like I said, I think we'll probably be okay because, again, a lot of things were pushed into that line item that may not necessarily belong there. Such as some of the maintenance things and equipment and that kind of stuff. So I think that honestly this year we'll probably be okay with that, especially if you look at it at a bottom line deal as we run through the year. And that, I'll be able to adjust it on paper during the year, but I think that given the fact that we're returning money every year, if something goes haywire, I think we'll be able to account for it without asking for additional funds, so.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions? All right. Thanks, sir.
Are we going to get back together on the indigent situation we talked about a month ago?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, so if I clean out, we could use the land van that's out there, let's say if we decide to do that. We could do that without purchasing another one. If I get on cleaning out the one that we've got and getting some of the records, we could actually probably, there's enough room in there now, we could start the project there and store those remains that we have if need be in the current land van. But if we get the archive thing done and clean it out completely, we wouldn't even have to get another one. So.
I think it's a conversation, though, about fencing and about a policy for collection down the road of remains. So I think there are a couple things, I like hearing that. But a couple other things that maybe we can get back together on and see if we've got.
Yeah, most definitely, because, I think the biggest thing is we need to decide, do we want to go in a cemetery and go that route and absorb those costs, or do we want to do it differently? Now, as far as security and fencing and that kind of stuff, I'm convinced that we're going to be okay. And we currently have a project out with IT right now to put some cameras, especially on the external side of the building and stuff like that, and maybe, just to cover it, putting one extra one that points towards that land van. But the land van itself is pretty darn secure, and I can't imagine, it would be a major undertaking, especially being hooked to the fire department, for someone to come out and get into that thing and steal remains or do something nefarious like that without somebody catching them. It would be quite the undertaking to be able to go out there and grind through everything without somebody noticing what's going on, so.
Thanks.
No pun intended.
I was about to say the same thing. Okay, Jody Jacobson? I think of the exact same thing.
She represent, Jody, Cooperative Extension.
Righty, good afternoon,
Good
Mr.
afternoon.
Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Jody Jacobson. I'm one of the educators with UW Extension, located here in Natrona County. And my other title, my little part-time job, that tends to be a bigger part-time job, is county coordinator. So for the most part, would you like a little explanation about how we run out at the ARLC?
Sure.
Okay. Right now, we have 3 full-time educators. My colleague Josh Bliss is here. He's our new 4-H educator here supporting me today. We also have Donna Hoffman, who is our horticulture educator. And then myself, I've actually moved into a new role called the Community Vitality and Health Educator. So that one's quite brand new, about 5 months old. So I've been working diligently to get that moving. We also have, staff-wise, let's see, I supervise 3 full-time county employees and 2 part-time county employees. So 4-H has 1 administrative assistant dedicated solely to it. We also have one called a program assistant, rural living and 4-H program assistant, who kind of goes back and forth. We haven't had an agricultural educator in the office now for about 3.5 years, and haven't seen one yet put out by UW. The next new one will be over in Converse County. And then we have 1 full-time administrative assistant bookkeeper. We have a part-time administrative assistant. Again, that full-time bookkeeper admin, she's also the administrative assistant for Donna Hoffman. And then our part-time gal she works with me a little bit. So we keep them very busy, and we have a great county staff. So, with that, we have a seasonal groundskeeper. That's just somebody that We have $4,500 each year allocated for that person, and they work until basically the money runs out. If you've been out at the RLC or taken notice of how much land there is and how much landscaping there is, he's just busy keeping the weeds down type thing. So, as per your instructions, I definitely stayed status quo. We definitely try to stay, well, actually, we do. We stay and live within our means with UW Extension. And so the salaries, if you can see on the chart, actually did go up, and I'm sure you've heard it all day with inflation. Everything has gone up as far as, healthcare and the like on that end. And then with our admins, they all got a really substantial increase when you did the wage adjustment. So they're looking good there, and now definitely in line with their contemporaries throughout the county. Our contract labor services, that's another interesting one. My position is 100% funded by the university. Donna Hoffman's position is somewhat funded. It's 35% the county, 25% the city, 50% the university. Josh's position as 4-H educator is 50% Natrona County and 50% the university. So that's the contract labor services. I did add about a 3%. There'll be a little bit of a bump on the university side with a raise this year. But we have not heard what that is yet. It's still a mysterious thing. Our repair and maintenance, we really have no budget on that. We have that'll come elsewhere. Postage, things like that. We are thrilled with our new phone system. I cannot tell you how nice it is to have a phone call that comes in that doesn't get cut off halfway through, or you can't call out, or they can't call in. That was really great, and really Eileen and her group should be commended for that. They did a wonderful job. So we're thrilled about that. Our education supplies, there's no change on that line item. $3,000 is approved for each year. What we do with that is we split that evenly between the 3 educators. So about $1,300 and change is what we have for our education supplies. Our travel, one of our larger line items, $10,000. Again, we split that 3 ways. So again, about $3,300 and change for each educator. That basically gets us to about 1.5 conferences per year. Just like everything else, I was really surprised the last conference I went to, just the fee to go to the conference had gone up $150. So just like everything else. Our research and demonstration, there's no change. That's another $3,000 that we split between us. That actually gives us a little bit of seed money when we're putting together workshops, any kind of demonstration. If we have a speaker that has a speaker fee, things like that, we help them with, make sure that they have dinner, afterward. So that's something that has not changed. Our office supplies, again, no change, $8,000, that we stay within that. Our training and certification, $2,500 goes toward our administrative assistants so that they can have training each year. The university does 1 training per year that they come out, that they have about a 4-day training. This year it'll be in Casper, so all will go to that. We also look when if someone needs another class, for instance, up at Casper College on Excel or something that would aid them in their job, then we have a little bit of budget to be able to pay for their class. Our vehicle maintenance repair, there's no change there. That was been $5,000. We stayed well within that. And that's pretty much our budget. We're pretty lean out there. And as I said, we try to give, the best service and the best value, and appreciate all the help that Natrona County, that the commissioners that you give us to do that. I did make mention for our next budget year, we do have 1 vehicle that is, looking here, there it is, it's a 2006 Pacifica, super high mileage. I'm not asking this year, but next year, just to give you a heads up, we'll be asking to replace that. So, and I forgot to tell you also, we have our sensible nutrition educators. That is a grant-funded total university group of folks that work with our lower socioeconomic groups and out in the elementary schools. They're probably the ones that are on the road the most in county vehicles, between going to different schools, different classrooms. We also have groups come in for sensible attrition too. And the building, of course, we use it for our educational purposes, 4-H club meetings, things like that. But we also have outside user groups that come in and use it a lot. So there's seldom a night that there isn't somebody out at the RLC using the building. So again, we thank you very much, and any questions I can answer for you.
Mr. Chairman.
Jim?
This would be for you or for Tracy. In travel, you say no change, 10,000 in your narrative, but if you look on the requests within the spreadsheet, it's 7,000.
That was the 20, I was going to say my 22, or 23, 24 budget. I have 10 on mine. I said I have 10 on mine,
For the 23, 24?
yes. And we've had that at $10,000 for at least, I just have 3 years here, but at least for the past 3 years.
No, it shows 20, go ahead.
So the sheet you gave me does reflect 2021, and it says 7, so I was given the wrong sheet. So,
Well,
we will fix that.
So that should be 10 then, correct?
yes, please.
Yeah, this is what I was given, Jody.
I will go back, and if I'll just claim it, that I made the best of it. I'm so sorry.
Okay, so I'll change that to 10.
So the rest of the numbers are good, though? Like salary and everything else?
I'm hoping.
Okay,
Do you want this copy,
I'll hope
Tracy?
with you.
Well, I work off of this, so I will look through it, and if anything looks odd, I will
Just go ahead and take
reach
it.
out to Jody.
Cool.
Yes.
Thank you.
And then I'll send you, yeah, then when I get back into the office, I'll email it over to you, so you have that.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. You got away with not saying anything.
I like having her here.
Okay, Tammy?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Commissioner and I'm Tammy Salisbury, Natrona County Assessor. Put together my budget. It's pretty simple. In reviewing what the office is needing, I am asking for 4 additional field appraisers
To hear?
so that we could actually meet our 6-year rotation in going over our parcels every year.
Thanks.
Based on those 4 additional appraisers, that would include the increases in the traveling expenses for their education and certifications. And I made no changes to my office or field supplies. I believe that we're adequately funded for that. The other thing that I added in my budget this year is I did add another $20,000 to the litigation and legal expenses. Right now, and the reason I did that is because Sinclair Refinery sold a few years ago, and we use T.Y. Pickett as our industrial appraisers, And we've always used them over, since I've been here, since 2006. Sinclair hired a new valuation service, and literally they're asking for a 173 million decrease. I do not believe that is correct. Now, whether or not that continues on, I'm not sure at this point, but that's the reason for that increase there, because I would have to have T.Y. Pickett come and defend that value. Other than that, should I get the 4 new appraisers for the field? I did have Atlas work up a quote for 10 new desks, just because the cubes that they have right now, there's not enough of them, and they do not function in the office as it sits. We don't have any additional vehicle expenses. We're good on that for that this year and probably next. So my main concern is just asking for additional employees for the office.
Tammy, what's the cost on those
On the,
additional employees?
I didn't bring the breakdown. It's like,
Mr. Chairman, it's a $141,456, including burden.
Say that number one more time, please.
$141,456. That's a total for 4, including burden, yes,
And these are full-time?
correct.
Sure. On your salaries, with the addition of the 4 field staff, it's kind of hard to see. Did you follow the market analysis on all that as well? For those wages?
yes, we did.
Okay. Second question real quick is, kind of goes to Peter's point a little bit. You've got, as an example, the travel expenses. You've got that clear up to 27,000, but it looks like historically that's never been used more than 13,000 basically.
I was generous on that account only because we've never met the actual quota for people in the field appraisers. So that was just a best guess at how many I could send at one time for traveling expenses.
Okay. And you need the.
So that
4
could be a little bit overstated.
Okay. And you need the 4 to meet the statutory, you
That would,
believe?
yes, it would give me 5 teams
Even
of
with
2.
the Eagle View and all that?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, and Madam Clerk, maybe you can help me with the math, but it seems like nobody can find employees these days, but we're looking at 4 of them, including burden, at $141,000. It seems, I guess that's $35,000 a year, but that's with burden. Does that seem right?
Should- 17 an hour is where they have us start now.
Year without the burden.
No, but this is with the burden.
Yeah, I know, but that,
And
Oh, you're exactly right, Mr. Nicolason. The 141,456 is salaries only. I apologize. So add another 25, another about 48 to 51% on top of that, please. for burden.
Added basically 50%. Can your office get by with just doing 2 this coming fiscal year and then adding 2 more the following?
2 would help, yes. That would, as far as getting through all of the parcel counts that we need to get through in a year.
That'd be a team, full team, right?
2, yes. So I've only got 2 teams right now. I've got 5 people, so I have a third that goes with them, and right now he's training. We're about the same parcel count as Cheyenne, and their team, they have teams of 2 and 5 teams total. The proof is just like with we just got through with our appeal process, so they are mandated to go out and physically inspect those properties. And will be another month and a half of just going out and reviewing those parcels that came into appeal for taxes. So having an extra team out there and being able to visit the properties would definitely be helpful. Right now, we have 3 vehicles. 3 full teams, and then an extra. Yeah, right now, yeah. The idea is so that they can interchange. Some teams can be out, the other team's in, doing paperwork, and it doesn't slow down that process of working the parcels that we need worked.
Mr. Chairman, what are we looking at as far as appeals on assessments?
Right now, we're still reviewing those. They're at 1,300. They're probably going to come down quite a bit. We just haven't been able to
So like
work
2?
through them all. 200?
13 to 2?
I am hoping.
Any other questions? Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jill?
Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. I am just going to go through my narrative. My budget is broke into 2. I have the Clerk of District Court Administration budget and then the Clerk of District Court budget. The administration piece is operational, and then the court part is mainly unfunded mandates. So as previous departments have come before you, it is difficult to forecast those line items. So that's what I just would like to say about that. So I'm just going to start with salaries. As the county clerk talked about, we've been working very hard to keep up with the wage study. I currently have 17 positions. I have 16 filled right now. Prior to the wage study, I could not get the 4 positions that I was approved to have last summer filled at all. So it has helped to get the salaries up, and it's encouraging to continue the wage study forward. So that figure, the 904,258, has our the wages that were approved last fall, plus the minimum, mid, and max system that we're trying to implement. Any questions on that for me?
How many open positions do you have currently?
1. Repairs and maintenance, that stays at 5,000. We went to a new e-filing system in December. We are the biggest district court in the state. I am the last court to go on as far as the 4 pilots. They have not rolled out any more courts. It's been bumpy. So that 5,000 is because I am still stuck in a paper world, even though it's electronic. So I have typewriters, a microfiche machine. And so if they break, we have that money. I haven't had to use it yet, so. The postage box is $100. Travel and expenses, we migrated to a new case management system in '21. I had that at 26,500. We dropped it to 15. I would just, if you would just please consider keeping that at 15 right now. I do not know if we're going to have more training on our new system, and if we do, we have to go down to the Supreme Court Training Center to have that training. So if I don't use it, I give it back. I do have a couple trainings that I am going to send staff to. I have 4 computer systems that I manage in the office that require training. And then I am, of course, with the association and committee meetings. Questions on that at all? Office supplies remain the same. The jury expense now, this is going into the district court budget. This is a change. We currently hand pay jurors, and they have to come to the office to get their check. This new way with the new computer system is they will get mailed a check after they've completed their jury service for that trial. It will be more efficient for the jurors, more transparent. Everybody will get their checks. I talked with Tracy on this and the auditor from Muirhead Porter, and we're asking for $300,000 to be put in the line item. That's based on 2 trials a week throughout the year, although I could have 4 trials on 1 week if all 4 of my district court judges are going to trial. On the 17th of July, I have 3 jury trials scheduled to go. Yeah.
2.5 of them will settle.
Hopefully.
Jill, are we reimbursed for any of that cost
No.
from the state?
No.
So it's all us.
It's all county. And that's at $30 a day. Unless it's 5 consecutive days, then it's $50 a day, plus mileage. So again, this is really hard to forecast. If I don't use the money in the line item, it just goes back to the general fund. So, questions on that at all? Witness expenses stayed the same. The public defender, that's at $290,000. And that, I just asked to say the same. I can't forecast that either. Court commissioners at 17, oh, sorry.
So jury expense.
Yes.
In your narrative, it's 300,000.
Yes.
On our sheet, it's 65,000.
Yeah, this was my ask. I was asked to keep it status quo, so I did on the sheet, but in my narrative, that's an ask.
But some of the others, like this public defender and
Mhm.
commissioner, those are consistent with your narrative. Witness expense, those are,
Yeah, that's how I've always done the budget.
right.
So the worksheet she provided me is 65,000,
Because that's what it is now, sorry.
sticking to the status quo.
Yes,
So you want that to read 300,000?
that's what I'm asking for. That's a change, that's a change.
It's an additional.
Yes,
So that's the total you would like to see?
yes, sorry,
The request is not 65, it's 300.
yes.
Okay.
And like I said, that's 2 trials a week for the year. But right now, if they don't come down and get their check, we don't pay the check. If that makes sense. This method, I will mail all, like if I pull a panel on Monday of 60, all 60 people will get a check. So I need to have the funding.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's
Going
okay.
back.
That's right. Yep,
And there's a lot of difference between 65,000.
yep, there sure is.
So
It's like I said, hard to,
If you wanted at 300,000,
yeah.
where could you live at? Is there a happy?
Well, it's like the sheriff and the coroner said, for our office, it's hard to forecast. So either we try to forecast what we think, and if we don't need it, it goes back, or otherwise we have to come mid-year and say, we need money. And so.
So, I don't know enough about this particular item to suggest that maybe, like Commissioner Milne was saying, go at the midpoint, say, put $150,000 in here. But I gotta say, to the sheriff and the coroner and everybody else, we're not turning this money back. It's just money that's not expended. But I think our side of it, or at least my side of it, is we're telling our constituents that our budget is this much money. And I think we owe them a duty to make that as accurate as possible. Now, sometimes we have to aim high because the stuff can hit the fan. With indigents, with prisoners,
Sure.
I get that. But I think we need to, when we say status quo, I think it works it's not like start there. It's like, well, look at it and see if we can make some adjustments downward too, if these numbers aren't realistic, because what I'm losing sleep over, literally, is how are we gonna pay for all this?
Sure.
Plus our capital projects coming up.
Sure.
You know, do we go get money from the taxpayers? Not a great idea.
Sure.
We better be able to justify it, and it's hard for me to justify it when we have budgets and then we say, but not really, or, but here's the asterisk, you know. So understand our predicament too, and I'm not on your case, I'm not on the sheriff's case, I'm just saying as a general matter, that's kind of what's giving me heartburn over this. So anyway, enough said, thanks.
Commissioner Nicolason, Chairman Commissioner Nicolason, if I could just respond to that. On the flip side, for me at least, is I feel the same if I have to come mid-budget, I guess. That'd be my comment to that, if I have to ask for more money. I want to be transparent and try to forecast the best I can. I'm not going to use that in any other manner. It's just that that's how I can see it conservatively, not going to 4 trials a week, only going with 2 when I could possibly have 4, so.
Well, it makes us all scramble a little bit when we have to do budget amendments, especially our clerk.
Sure.
At the same time, it's a pretty good explanation for me when I'm talking to my constituents that, look, here's where we actually did need to go get this. And so it's kind of this balancing thing.
Yes, thank you. I would agree, and if that's the way you would like to go, I'm completely fine with that. Just know that I might have to come mid-year to ask for more.
And Jill, I want to
Yes.
reiterate what Peter was saying too, because I feel the same way. We have to balance everybody's budget across the board. And so if one department has a whole lot more money than they've actually been spending,
Right.
that's going to affect the people that haven't got as much money, that have already cut back, and they're living on a shoestring. So since we have to have a balanced budget, anything that we don't allocate, or we do allocate, is going to take from somewhere else. So it affects everybody in the county all the way across the board. So I understand what you're saying, so don't misunderstand that.
Sure.
I understand that completely. But it is a situation where we have to look at how we can balance everybody's budget, give them what they really need, and yet, at the same time, make sure that we don't go over. So.
Right, yep, that makes sense. And I would just say that probably 65 is not going to be enough. I know that probably is, because now I'm not paying everybody right now, only the people that come back down for a check. This new system is going to pay everybody by mail. It's going to be more efficient. Jurors ask me all the time, why do I have to come back down and get a check? Why don't you mail it to me? We're like half the state. Half the state does it this way, and half the state does other methods. Maybe they have it under the treasurer or county legal, but, so.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. So you have an extra judge,
Yes,
and that's different than last year, isn't it?
yes.
So you're going to have at least one more judge trying cases.
Yes.
So I want to understand your thinking about, you had 65,000. So I can understand you would want to raise it
Sure.
because you have another judge and more, more of everything going on there. So can you, let me get inside your mind a little bit more and see how you came up with going from 65 to 300,000?
I took 2 trials a week. I have a criminal trial scheduled every single week. That doesn't include jury trials. So I was just trying to be conservative, not going with 4 trials scheduled each week, but only 2. That's 4 days of a trial for 2 trials a week, plus mileage.
So when you do that math, do you come up with 300,000?
Yes.
And what do you think? Do you think that's realistic? Because if it is, I would like to see you get the money. I'm just
Well,
trying to
in
understand this.
2021, when I was appointed, we had 24 trials. I had to come back to the commission and ask for more money. Last year, we had 7. I guess it's just hard to forecast. So I am okay with whatever you want to give me in this. It's going to cost more money because I'm going to pay everybody.
Was last year a banner year for trials? For the
I
number?
don't know, coming off of 24, and then we had 7, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But I have a trial scheduled every single week on top of civils, so.
So if you have, let's say that you have trials scheduled every week, but would it be too much to say 50% of them settle?
Maybe.
So would that still leave you at 300 grand?
No, it would not. I don't really know where to start. I contacted Cheyenne. They have more in their line item than that. They have less trials than we do. I'm just trying to set a standard, but it will be more transparent for all of our constituents that they're getting paid when they complete their jury
Right.
service versus coming down and getting paid.
I
That
hear
makes
that.
sense,
I
yeah.
hear that. And I understand that you might have a year that nobody settles anything. It's
Right.
probably be
That's it.
unusual, but
That's exactly.
now I understand your thinking. Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, Jill, the reason why this is such a significant change, if I'm understanding correctly, is the current system now is the jurors currently come in and get paid. However, with the new system, once they've served their duty, you are going to send out a check to all of them.
That's correct.
Instead of waiting for them to come in to pick up their check.
That's it. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And has a new judge, which means more litigation, actually.
Yeah.
Will that not raise your postage above $100?
That would be my postage.
Yeah,
Thank you very
that's-
much.
Tracy's postage.
So, again, your postage even more.
I'm trying to be conservative.
Any other questions on the jury? Court commissioner, 17,500. I was just told the court commissioner contract was increased. But, so maybe that's not enough, I do not know. Think commissioners and court,
And you pay the court commissioners?
Yes.
Out of your budget?
I do.
And you pay the public defender also?
Yes. And I do not know. That's why I try to forecast the best I can, but
Is that based on case-by-case basis, or how is that
it's
paid?
statute that we,
Oh, I see.
Commissioner, I think when she says public defender, it is for the parents' attorneys for abuse and neglect cases. It's not criminal cases for the actual public defender.
Yes.
So it's the court appointed for those parents' cases in the juvenile proceedings.
well, it's all of them.
Court commissioner would be for the involuntary hospitalization. I believe that everyone in those did request increases. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, as I haven't actually seen those contracts.
Goodbye.
So, I don't know what the increase will be, if this is enough or not, I guess now. I was just told today that was increased. So. The court reporter, I kept the same, 21, it was 21,000. This year, it's been 13,000 so far, 13,658.75. Court-appointed attorney, $620,000. We're running pretty close to that amount right now.
And which, that's the 25,
No, yes.
and what other ones?
That is the, as Jared just explained, the attorneys in the juvenile cases that are quite, yes. And the GAL, which was $70,796 for this year.
Can we go over that one more time?
Yes. Any other questions on that? And then meals, lodging, and expenses for jury and witness, it's $10,000, and that covers all the expenses and meals and everything for the jurors, so. We have this miscellaneous for court, for the court repairs and office supplies. And then this $5,000 outlay, so.
I'd like to get a breakdown of the court-appointed attorneys, how much has gone to each category. That'd help me out. No hurry.
Would you like this from my budget?
Do I have it? Oh, yeah. Yeah, but this is by attorney. Do you have one just by category, like? Can we work on that so that, again, no hurry? Thanks.
And I don't know, I was told they were asking for an increase as well, the court-appointed attorneys. I keep asking, but I don't know.
Like, Commissioner, I know that Ms. Reed was working on reviewing those contracts. I know there was a request for an increase just along with everyone else, inflation, and the attorneys there have requested somewhat of an increase. I don't know off the top of my head what that request was, so.
One of the attorneys, the Title 25, the primary Title 25, told me that he wasn't requesting, but might in the future. And so, anyway, I think we can talk more at a later point, but go through it after Charmaine gets that done.
Is that Willoughby?
And I think some of the confusion is just the lumping everything together between the Title 25 and then the parents' cases for those juvenile cases. So we'll get a breakdown of that. I think it'll be a little easier to understand.
Oh, and then the out-of-county, we do request back, and that's about $30,000. So we'll be doing that in the next couple weeks.
Jill, how's the step, where are you sitting at as far as on step increases after the decompression last year?
Well, with working with Tracy and with Tom, we feel like we've categorized everybody where they need to be right now. We feel good about that, I think. We've worked pretty hard on that, so. But that's been, great and encouraging because it's really helped with keeping people and.
Okay. All right. Got any more questions for?
Thank you.
Thanks, Jill. All right. So I guess we'll be adjourned for today.
Are we adjourned, gentlemen?
We're adjourned for today.
Thank you.